All right, hello, Lyric Armstrong, your real estate agent and advocate. We are back. We are back. We are back. Oh, I am so excited. Thank you guys for all the love, liking and sharing and viewing the videos. Really appreciate your support. So continue to do wonderful things like share and subscribe. Um, we're going to go back into the Lenawee courthouse. They are extending their hearing now on their probate matter. And maybe now we're going to learn a few things about what this case is all about. As you may have seen in the other video, we were able to watch a hearing that the litigants were held in contempt for non-complying with an order. So they were showing compliance review hearing. So it was a review hearing to say, Your Honor, review this. Look, we've done everything. So they had to do that a couple times over because they hadn't quite done everything. So go ahead and check that video out if you haven't. Has a lot of great little tidbits on things that we can do when we are setting up our trust, learning from others. That's what we like to do here, because especially in the probate matters, like once we're gone off this earth, we're gone. And so we want to put things in order to kind of effectuate what we want done with our assets and our different items of possessions. And we won't be here to correct it. So we're learning a little bit from those who have different problems in their own probate matters. They're not here to correct it, but we can learn from their mistakes or mishaps, or just learn, maybe something good that they did do, right? So today we'll get back into court. This is actually the same day. Oh, sorry, guys. It's the same day. This is just the hearing for the day, because the review hearing was in response to the fact that they were held in contempt for non-compliance of the order. That took place earlier in the morning. Now we're moving on into what the actual hearing of the day was. So let's
whenever you're ready, Mr. Fleck.
Get in there. A quick reminder, we like to keep things loud with the hopes that you can hear us. I'm going to keep the playback normal just because right now it seems like we have different volumes, and I believe like the attorneys and the conservator and guardian lineman are all in the courthouse, and so they might be sharing the mic, and sometimes that makes it a little low. So be careful. Don't be plugged in if you can avoid it, or turn down the volume. Just be careful of your ears. Okay, we're getting ready for something.
Live testimony is the power of attorney. Oh,
36.
That's correct.
Okay.
You've had the opportunity at some point in time in this investigation to review the power of attorney. Is that accurate? That allegedly, or that was forged, according to experts in this case. You've had that opportunity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
we have forged power of attorneys in this case. This is a juicy case. It sounds like they have some pretty successful businesses. The estate seems to have some fluency and its trucking and transportation. So it sounds like some really good business models are going for it. So hopefully they're profitable. Don't know. But if we're forging power of attorney, something is something. Somebody got money somewhere, because don't nobody want to be a power of attorney of somebody who's broke.
In that, that you've seen.
And I say that lightly, but it's kind of true. Like, if you don't want to talk to your own bill collectors, why are you trying to talk to somebody else's bill collectors so they don't have no money to pay for it? But anyway, just being funny.
Just putting the pages together here so they're not out of order. This would be exhibit number 16.
I wonder why we don't have a.
Judge, may I approach?
I don't wonder why we don't have a camera on the podium. We have it on the witness box, the judge, and then the litigants who are off site.
I'm handing you pages. This is being of 16. If I don't know, we can or can't pull it up on the screen for to see. Yeah.
You guys hear my dog?
Pages basically identical.
Do you hear my dog? He's lapping up the water. Oh, now he's being quiet. His name is T'Challa, after Black Panther. He's a Carne Corso. Oh. Now he's like, are you talking about me, mommy? He's making so much noise. I thought he wanted to be a part of the live, but here we go.
Do you note that or see that?
I do. One is just an enlarged version of the other, correct?
Okay. And as it relates to that exhibit 16, is this in reference to
exhibits,
what was being used?
Oh, I love exhibits. Okay, let's read it. The power. This power of attorney shall become effective immediately. This is a very simplified document, but most contracts can be simple. They really can. They don't have to be lavishly laid out with all the different sections and titles and numbers and all the beautiful things that your attorney will give you to make it look real official. It's really relative to the content, the intent, and the parties. So, doesn't have to be pretty. I just say it's best to have everything typewritten, because we can't read everybody's handwriting. And I've said this before. Maybe you've heard it, but reality is true. There are schools that are not teaching cursive. So, if you write in cursive, or Big Mama writes in cursive, or whomever, will your grandkids actually be able to read it? Will they actually be able to read it? It's actually a real concern. I can't believe it. It's ridiculous. Everyone should learn how to read cursive. But anyway. Okay, so this power of attorney shall become effective immediately and shall not be affected by my disability or lack of mental capacity. You can't enter a power of attorney or a conservatorship and you're not in your right mind. It's legally impossible. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to designate someone over your affairs if you don't have mental capacity. So this and shall not be affected by my disability or lack of mental capacity, or I'm going to say competency. That's not a legal statement. Except as may be provided otherwise by an applicable state statute. Like, what are you even talking about? A state statute? What? Over conservatorships? This is a durable power of attorney. This power of attorney shall continue effective until my death. This power of attorney may be revoked by me at any time by providing written notice to my agent. Okay, you haven't designated who the power of attorney is. Who gets the? What is this page? Is this the signature page or something? Like is there other pages to it? You haven't designated who the power of attorney is. You haven't designated the power of what? The financial power, the medical power, like what do they have the power of? And if I remember correctly, they have a running termination. Like, I think they expire after like a year or two. Like, you have to renew them, right? You can't just have them run forever in 3 days. Okay, there's a signature there. Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is what it says. Let's find out what's going on here.
To ascertain alone this document after April 25th, 2020.
To ascertain a loan? You don't even have, you don't even say it's for all of my personal business, financial affairs, medical. You don't list any power of, what is the power of? Okay.
21.
Maybe because it's
That's my
durable
understanding,
power.
sir.
Okay. And in your
2021.
understanding,
Okay.
Excuse me, Your Honor. May I approach?
A long time after this
Send
was
everybody.
quote unquote
Um,
signed.
Any objection?
has nothing to do with me. So
No, it doesn't, but it might be the key is to get something.
Mr. Holderman, any objection to me reviewing the proposed order?
No,
Have
Your
you had a
Honor.
chance? Okay, thank you. You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll have a look at that. And Mr. Flood, you're referencing Exhibit 36, is that right? Proposed Exhibit 36?
no, we've already admitted to it, Judge. None of them are proposed. They're all been stipulated to.
Well, I don't have it, so
I'm going to give it to you.
I just wanted to make sure I still knew what we were talking about.
You're right, though.
Okay, so stipulated means all, well, it should be all the parties stipulate, but it means that they agree on this issue or they agree on this document. And so he's saying these items are no longer proposed. Everyone has stipulated to their legitimacy or lack thereof.
That's the power of attorney. Where one time we said live, we had to wait for the expert.
I thought I had heard you reference Exhibit 16, so I just wanted to make sure I was
Oh, I'm
clear
sorry.
on which.
I apologize. As it relates to, and you can see Dee Warner, you have no dispute, would you, with regards to the expert opinion that this is a forged signature? You'd have no dispute to that.
That's correct. But again, I was not here for that.
Okay, so here's the rest. Okay, so it's notarized. I guess what makes it fraudulent then? So a general power of attorney, I had to look this up because I'm like, maybe the word, because I said maybe the durable is what makes it like all effective, all inclusive. And to some extent, so a general power of attorney is a power of attorney that you enter into when you're coherent and mentally capable. It automatically expires upon incapacity or death. Okay, so that's that. A durable power of attorney remains operable until incapacitated, although it expires upon death. So it almost has the same thing, except for when you're incapacitated and you have a durable power of attorney, the power of attorney keeps going. It still is in effect until you are deceased. However, the general power of attorney, when you become incapacitated, it expires. So that must mean you have to go in for or your family has to go in for your conservatorship. So just saying that so durable is the element that says that it goes beyond your ability to be incapacity, right? Like your competency. So that might give rise to that clause that shall not be affected by my disability or lack of mental competency. That's saying that, okay, so now I understand this document a little better. So this power of attorney is saying that it's effective immediately. It shall not be affected by any disability or lack of mental competency. And it's because it's the durable power of attorney, which that particular version of a power of attorney goes beyond your ability to be competent mentally. So though you enter into it while you're still competent, it maintains effectiveness even when you become mentally incompetent or disabled. So that's why that sentence is there. Not that you can enter into the contract without having mental capacity, because a part of having the ability to enter into a contract is that you have mental capacity to do so, all right? Okay, so the other part of this is that it's notarized. And if you are a notary, do me a favor. Do not notarize documents unless you can truly validate that the person signed it. Now, don't cheat, don't lie, don't pretend. No, Okay, people, the court, the general public, different businesses, financial institutions, we are depending upon your notary stamp. Okay, so make sure that you are double checking that the people are there. I don't know what makes this document fraudulent. They'll surely tell us, I'm sure. The foregoing instrument was acknowledged before me on the 20th day of October 2014 by Dee Ann Warner. My commission expires June 6, 2020. Okay, so that just means that that's the notary's expiration for their commission license. Okay.
That's fine, yeah.
No, I understand, but I just want to make sure that it is your understanding that it was this document and this power of attorney that was being used in your investigation. You came to find out to ascertain a loan after she went missing.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Wait, she went missing? Missing like really? Oh my gosh, this is like I'm telling you, I just wanted to find something to talk about, like everybody else on YouTube, right? I'm just trying to find content. I really was just trying to find something to talk about that gives us different perspective of real estate and our assets and how things work when we do and don't do things in a certain order, and just give us some understanding so that we can learn and do better, right? Because I'm about preservation of generational wealth building. Like you can't just buy real estate and buy assets. You got to give it down to the next generation, and there's a way to do that where they're not being devalued because the assets and everything are paying for a whole bunch of attorneys to litigate. But Miss Warner went missing, and someone took this. I still don't even see who the power of attorney is given to, because it says this person, Matt Luck, witnessed the power of attorney, but it doesn't identify who the power of attorney goes to. Who gets the power? Matt can't get the power because he witnessed it. Right? And then why do we have a witness? I guess we have a witness, but I really don't understand why we need a witness if we have a notary. Oh my gosh, she went missing. Oh, poor Miss Warner. Okay, I feel so bad. Okay, let's go back.
In your investigation, you came to find out to ascertain a loan after she went missing.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Thank you. One second, Your Honor.
What is going on? What is going on? Lady D went missing. And it may not be that someone took her. Be mindful. Our senior citizens, and not to say that she is, just giving us some thought process, or was. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I just this just fell in my lap, and I'm coming to depack it. But when we get older, we find sometimes that our senior citizens will walk the neighborhood and they'll get lost. They'll get turned around, and so they don't come back home, right? So I've been so grateful and so blessed. Now, when my father passed away, he passed away of cancer. He was extremely young, but we had a caretaker for him and a nurse. So, he was never alone. Someone was always with him. And we were able to do the same for my in-laws. They were older, and they really older age, just, having life really came for them. But, at the end, it was different things like Parkinson's for one, and then pancreatic cancer. So those are the things that took them out, but they were in their 80s. So they weren't as young as my father. But thankfully, we were able to have a caregiver for them. I cannot tell you how good it makes me feel to know that my in-laws did not have to go into a home, or my father did not have to go into a home, and my mother's still alive. So, and she's, very independent and doing her thing. So I'm grateful for that. Because simple things like this, just walking around, our loved ones can get lost easily. So you never want to have them alone, right? Let them walk and be independent, but never have them alone when they get to a certain state. Doesn't mean age, just a certain state where they get turned around, get a little discombobulated or lose their way. You want to definitely have someone caring for them.
You're aware of the billboard activity, that campaign that took place in this case. Is it related to Dee Warner for Justice and the like? Yes?
Yes.
You're also aware of a website that was taken on for Dee Warner and missing, fair?
Yes, sir.
And also there was publications
So
you're aware of that were placed in the paper for Dee Warner missing, yes?
Yes, sir.
In any of those publications, was there any?
Okay, so FYI, for those of us in the world who didn't know, Lenawee County is a county in Michigan. Okay, so Michigan court is killing it. Okay, we love you, Michigan court. You guys keep us well educated, well informed. You take publicizing the courts and keeping them public to the level that it should be at this day and age of technology. So thank you for keeping things on Zoom. We don't come to judge or criticize the people. We're not here to make dispersions against anyone. We're here to learn. So thank you so much for that. And I'm gonna look for Dee Warner. I'm trying to figure out what this
Anything
is.
or any information that will strike that? Did Dee Warner ever call you or call the Michigan State Police to tell you, hey, I'm alive based on these publications? Did you stop looking for me?
No, sir.
Anyone call you and tell you based on those publications, hey, I have her, if you want her, give me X amount of money?
No, sir.
Did anyone on those publications give you any other clue, tip, investigative tool other to persuade you to something other than your opinion she's dead?
No.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I did not know this because I know they're talking about the Warner Brothers when they kept saying Warner this, and then I said, oh, it's trucking. I don't think Warner Brothers are in trucking. But to know that this is a young lady, Miss Warner, with 5 children. I have 5 children. I'm so sad. So maybe you guys probably know more than I about her going missing and what that was like. Oh, I feel so sad for the family as a whole. You know, I was able to prepare for the death of all of, the ones I was just speaking of, my father, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. We prepared. We knew it was coming. Some was quicker than others, but we knew it was coming, and we were able to be there. I pronounced my father dead. Other family was able to pronounce my mother-in-law, my father-in-law dead. And like I said, it really makes a difference when you can be there for your family. So this family, this young lady has left whatever. I became missing. I don't know all the details. I don't know any details. I'm just finding out. And she was like 52 years old. She was young. She was very, very young. She went missing, and they didn't have any idea. So this is who she is. You guys probably have a lot of her information. I just came about this case because I thought we would learn a great deal about probate and certain things about evidence. This is coming really beyond, evidence about real estate. And this is coming really beyond what I had intended, but we'll look at it. We'll see how it goes. But just for disclosure purposes, I do not know what's going to come out of this case. I don't know if there's anything triggering. So there's a lot of complexities here that just might be. So if you have any personal sensitivities, you may just want to click off this video. Okay. Stay healthy.
Your Honor, I have marked Well, I did that, Mark. The exhibits that were up here. Hold on again. And I will tender to the courts the exhibits of the medical examiner's reports of each one that this witness has identified and testified to.
Okay, which one specifically are we talking about?
We are talking about 6 through 15. 15 goes through live testimony, but we do in fact have the Wayne County Medical Examiner's reports. We're talking about the 18, 19, all the way through, Your Honor, 31. We also tendered already, for the record, 37, 36, giving I just marked, and referenced earlier was the ONU financial report supplemental. I can
All right, Mr. Flood, I do not have documents in support of your proposed exhibit 10, proposed exhibit 15, or proposed exhibit 36.
Okay,
It would appear the rest of the exhibits that you just referenced are in the book.
you're right. Here is 10. That's the Wayne County Medical Examiner's office.
Thank you.
You got it.
Good games.
I'm sorry. Yep.
So Mr.
10 and
Warner,
15 are the same.
Mr. Warner was listed as a person of interest in the relation to Miss Dee's disappearance. And some of what was being reported by Channel 7 for Detroit News, WXYZ, is that friends of Miss Dee proclaimed that her and her husband Dale were in a heated argument relative to a business of theirs, and she was looking for a divorce. And that particular night that she went missing, she sent their minor child to stay at a friend's house so that she could confront her husband and inform him that she wanted a divorce. And so the friend ended up reaching out sometime in the later evening to check on the status of Miss Dee, and she replied with, a letter. Just they were like, "How are you doing?" She said K, and they found that to be weird because that wasn't her usual way of speaking. Then in text message, and then the phone died. So there are a lot of facts, unbeknownst to me. like I literally just jumped in the middle of a discovery hearing relative to accounting on the trust, and now we can see why we got some heated concerns. And I think that young lady who is the guardian litem is probably over the young child. And I go back to my original issue with her not knowing accounting. It's like, well, go hire one, get an outside opinion. And my original issue of the attorney, Mr. Lee, when he just kept saying, "Oh, nothing nefarious, nothing no games here, no nothing, no nothing." I just felt so irritated by his constant push for that particular narrative. Now I have an even higher irritation for it because I actually know some of the facts that I didn't know before. This is a very high profile case for the area.
Once Jane Doe. Oh, I'm sorry.
Whew. I done stepped in the thick of it now, didn't I?
Once I give it.
Wow.
Judge,
Yes. Just as,
this is 10 and 15. This is the other part. That's,
the record should reflect I'm handing back the documents that have been provided. Some of them appear to correspond to 10 and some do not. I have received, for the
that's-
record, a singular document entitled Warrants, the Evans Wayne County Executive, date 5.
They're clicking around these papers are making it extra loud in my ears. So I'm turning it down when I tell you guys, we're gonna have it loud. We're gonna have it loud. It's a little too loud.
23, acknowledgement of individual, or some of the words on the page. Is this what you want me to receive for 10?
that is, yes, Your Honor, that 10, just so you know, there's two different ways to do this. There's the 10 that deals with the Jane Doe, and, I'm sorry, 10 is Dee Warner, and 15,
You guys, okay. So I'm not paying attention to the evidence, obviously. One of the reasons is because right now they're doing like ancillary administrative things, making sure that they're getting the right exhibits in so that they can go ahead and start asking questions relative to it. So it's really not defining anything for us because we can't see it or understand what the context of it is just yet because we're getting things in order. So I'm over here reading about some of the juicier salient parts of this matter. And so Dale's attorney, so Dale is the husband, Dale's attorney did an interview or at least answered some questions from the general public where he states that Dale believes Dee took off and he wants her to come home. But at the time of her disappearance, all of her vehicles were still at her house and there was no credit card activity in a year. So this is like a whole year after her disappearance. Oh my gosh, this is so sad. And if she has a young child, there ain't no mother in their right mind. There is just isn't, and I say ain't no mother in their right mind gonna leave their child for a year, not speaking to them just because they're upset with their husband. This doesn't do that, not voluntarily. And that doesn't mean that he did it because I don't know, but I think some of these statements, these responses are very questionable. Like, who would think that? And how does she take off if all her vehicles are home? All of her modes of transportation are at home, but she took off. She took off walking to just walk off, maybe. But she may have taken a walk to cool off, and someone kidnapped her and did something to her. But if not the husband, but yeah, that's a very weird thing to think that, oh, she just ran off without a car and no credit card. She didn't rent a car.
Your Honor, is the Wayne County Jane Doe. So when the trooper, and when we subpoenaed these records for this, for the trooper to testify to, he wanted to look at it in two ways. One, to show there's no one that ever matched her identification and no one that ever matched Dee Warner specifically. So there wasn't a Jane Doe. So we had to do it cumbersome, but we had to do it both ways with each medical examiner.
I heard all of his testimony. I was well aware that you
Great. So
acted that way.
yeah, great. Thanks. I have both those exhibits. Unfortunately, this is washed. That's washed.
I don't know who their attorney was, but that response was kind of snippet. Great. Okay, so I have all those.
Do you have a document that you would like me to receive in support of named Exhibit 15?
Yes, Your Honor, it's right here.
I don't know if he's just tired, but his tone is kind of
I see that 10.
not appropriate.
You may approach.
Yeah, maybe he's just frustrated because he doesn't have his things in order. Because he should be going a lot quicker with these exhibits. He should know which ones they are. This is for this. This is like, I don't understand. But it seems like they've gotten something mixed up. It's okay. I'm reading about the case.
Judge, I'll submit it. Attorney, I'll have it submitted let me just get, because there's a blur here as far as reading the name. So let me get a better document for you, if you don't mind.
It's up to you.
No, that's what I want to do. I want to give you something better to see.
All right, so the record should reflect then that I do not have documents in support of 10 or 15 or 36 at this point.
Thank you. I will get the better copies of that printout for you, Your Honor. Last one you said was.
Okay, so here's a shout out to all my paralegals and all of my legalist secretaries and all of my copy staff. When you are, especially when you're making physical copies, you have to check your exhibits before trial. You make your folder, exhibit 1, whatever your exhibit label is. On the outside is a copy of it, and on the inside is every copy you need for the judge and for all of the opposing counsels, and one extra one for the clerk. I always have an extra one because, by golly, the judge wants to see theirs and the clerk needs it for the file, right? It just happens that way. I kill a lot of I kill a lot of trees with my with my exhibit folders, but you won't catch me in there slipping. One of the things that happens when you're making a lot of copies is that the ink messes up or it doesn't scan the copy right, and so it comes out blank or it misses a great deal of information. When you are, say you're doing a document production, I will look to the best of my ability, but it's not my only thing in life to do, right? But when you're going to court, I check page to page to page because that folder needs to be tight. This right here should not be happening. I know he wants to have clean copies for the judge. Of course you do. You need to be able to read the document. So this is something you do before you go to court, is you make sure each one of the copies have a complete printout or a complete copy of what you are trying to present. So let's learn from this counselor. I'm sure he's doing his best. He's probably sleep deprived and all that great thing. But let's learn from him that when we're putting our exhibits together, we're making sure each one of those pages are exactly as they should be.
It's 30 MDOC. I do have in fact 30 MDOC.
36.
No, you just had the MDOC, that's Michigan Department of Corrections records. Okay. Oh, okay. No, I apologize. MDOC was live testimony. That was the Michigan Department of Corrections. Thank you, Your Honor. I have no other questions at this time.
Okay. Cross-examination, Mr. Lee?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, what was the fraudulent? We were talking about the fraudulent power of attorney. It's like, what was the basis of the examination in the first place? Oh, she's been missing for over 2 years. Oh my gosh, so sad. And the worst part about it is if it was the husband, because I don't know, it's alleged. It could be, could not be. The worst thing about it is you rob the children of their mom and the dad. Because if he goes to jail or if there's like a suspicion that he's a part of her disappearance in any way, it really just tears at the kids in a way that we as outsiders really don't even understand. We can guess about it. We can surmise. We can come up with anything that we think, but we just don't actually know the feeling that those children may have, love for their father, hatred, torn feelings, whatever. And so my heart goes out to this family because this is way more than a notion. I don't do criminal law. And there is a real reason why I don't. And this is a part of it. It's too sad sometimes. I do money law, things to do with money.
Detective Sergeant, I'm Larry Lieb. I'm going to try to keep my voice up and have a
Please do.
tendency to talk softly.
We
I'm
want to
not
hear
sure
you.
Why, but
I don't either.
I'll try
Speak
to
up.
keep my voice up. I'm continuously reminded of that. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You and I met before, right?
Sure have.
We've had conversations for approximately over a year and a half. Is that true?
I'm not certain the first time I spoke to you, sir, but no, it will be at least a year in December.
It's
So, yeah.
been a while.
Okay. I believe you testified earlier, you became involved in the investigation in March of 2022. Is that right?
Roughly, yeah, thereabouts.
And within a few days of your becoming involved, you and I had a conversation. Is that fair?
Honestly, sir,
Potentially.
I'm not disputing, I just don't recall.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Thinking about you.
You don't dispute that you and I have had many conversations over this case over the course of the last year and a half. Is that true?
At least a few, yes, sir.
You've
And
talked to
I have
him. We
been
know.
approachable for whatever you have asked for, including producing Mr. Warner for any interviews that you've had.
Oh, he must be Warner's attorney because he's like, we've talked, we have assisted you and complied and worked with your investigation. This is what he's trying to prove now.
Is that true?
I was wondering, like, how many times do you think this detective is sitting around counting how many times he's talked to you, Mr. Attorney? But okay, now I understand why
Okay.
he's.
I
doing
have
that.
also, in the course of representing Mr. Warner, given you essentially carte blanche to visit his home, his office, his fields, his barns, his equipment.
I'm sorry. The detective does not need your permission to go see about Mr. Warner's office and different effects. He just needs a court order. He doesn't need you at all.
Or anything,
Your-
everything.
Your client needs you. He doesn't need
asked
you.
for. Is that true?
I'm not certain I've asked you for any of those things, sir.
I haven't denied it, right? And you've been working with the sheriff's department, I guess, since you began this case, and I never denied it to them either. But you'll agree with me, I haven't denied you, or Mr. Warner has never denied you.
I hate when attorneys start testifying in this format. I really would wish that the opposing attorney would object to his testimonial statements about, I've never done this, I've never done that. Just ask the question, have I ever denied you access? Do you recall that I expressed to you that you had carte blanche? Not, I've never denied you, even when you worked with the sheriff's department. I've never done this, I've never done that. Isn't that correct?
Access to anything. Is that true?
That's not true.
Okay. You'll agree with me, I haven't denied you, or Mr. Warner has never denied you access to anything. Is that true?
Never denied you to, this is a horrible question. You've never denied him to anything?
That's not true.
Okay. When have we ever denied you access to anything?
Oh, the face. Oh, the face. I don't know if she was, because she was looking at a screen, because she has glasses like me, so it was being evident, right? We get the glare. I don't know if it was because of that or if it's the questioning, but boy, she was making a
He
face.
denied me access to at least one electronic device that became a topic of debate.
Oh,
Okay. Did it contain any financial information or anything that we need to produce it for?
It contains numerous things.
I'm sorry. Are you kidding me? You denied access to a financial device. It's not like you denied access to the office or the say a storage unit or something where you might have forgotten that that was something. You denied him access to a device, and then you're going to turn around and say, well, was there anything of pertinent value on there? How do we know? You denied me access, so I had to go through great lengths to get it. So it may have been on there before you gave it to me, and it wasn't by the time you did. I don't know.
Okay, what was it?
It was a cellular phone. It contains numerous things.
Okay, what was it?
It was a cellular phone.
And do you know whose phone it was?
It was in the possession of Dale Warner.
Okay, do you know who owned the phone or what it was about? Was it his daughter's phone?
No, it was Dale Warner's phone, or a phone that he used.
I'm sorry. Get out of here with that. The daughter was 9 years old, 9, 10, 11 years old today at the most. She's no older than 11. if it's that daughter. So it's the dad's phone. It's not the daughter's phone just because she uses it. It's the dad's phone. It's in his name. You know, whoever he allows to borrow or use his phone doesn't matter. But when it's in his name or the mom's name, it belongs to them. That's the contract. It's their phone. So get out of here with that. I'm annoyed.
Have you ever saw a search warrant for that phone?
We had a search warrant for that phone.
Okay, and you did download it though, didn't you?
That specific phone, yes, sir.
Okay. So there's nothing that we haven't provided either voluntarily or through a search warrant. Is that true?
Judge, a search warrant, that's a misnomer. I object to the mischaracterization. Search warrant's a command by a court, not by Mr. Leeds' permission.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome to cross-examine.
Thank you. I am feeling whoever that attorney was. I am feeling you. You were playing. Do we have a jury trial going on or something? Is that why that might be reason why we're not pointing towards the? But I don't know. Because we were protecting the public, the jurors. But I really wish we had a camera on the podium so we could see the attorneys. Because this is ridiculous. You're arguing about. First of all, you're trying to say we've never denied you anything. Yeah, no, you have. Yeah, you did. A phone. Oh, well, that wasn't his phone. That was his daughter. No, it's in his name. Stop playing games. The girl is a minor. She ain't paying her own bill. Shut up. And then you turn around and you're going to say, okay, well, whether it was voluntary or through search warrant, we've never stopped you from having it. If I got to go get a search warrant, you have stopped me. It's the court that has allowed me to go get it, and I'm enforcing a court order, not your voluntary. Here you go. It's ridiculous.
Would you agree, Detective, that
No,
you and I have had
we
an
don't.
open, free flow?
No, we don't agree with you. You are a liar. You are misrepresenting what happened. I don't agree with you. I don't even know who you are, but you are not presenting the truth to this court.
Discussion about this case, and we have worked together on this.
No, we didn't work
I don't
together.
know if that's an accurate representation, no, sir.
Yes, I am feeling this, detective. No, you cannot represent that you have actively been working together when you have prevented searching of an item. You okay. In a missing person, in a scenario of potential kidnap, every minute counts. Every moment matters. So if you're wasting my time to where I have to go back to the court and petition for a search warrant, emergency or otherwise, even if I get it in an hour's time to turn around to get the device from you, you've wasted an hour. You've wasted my time. And when you're looking for someone and you're trying to make sure someone is safe, every minute counts. You're wasting minutes to talk about, well, that's my daughter's cell phone. Give the man the cell phone. So no, you're not helping the investigation. Yes, you've had roadblocks. Shut up. You're not working with him. You know you haven't. So why are you even going down this line of questioning? You know you haven't. Why would it's ridiculous. So annoying. So annoying. Oh, my hair is tingles. I don't know. Oh, are we looking through the cell phone records now? What are we doing? Why are we so quiet?
When you became involved with the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department, how did that begin? Did they call you, or did you just, as a Michigan State Trooper, involve yourself?
Oh, no, sir, I was contacted. I'm not certain if I was contacted directly or if it was my work site. Nonetheless, I was directed at their request to come and aid them.
Were you specifically, or the Michigan State Police, and then you were assigned the project?
Oh, I'm nowhere near that special, sir, just my department.
Okay. And you were assigned the project, and you have a partner that's working with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who's your partner?
Detective Sergeant Scott Singleton.
Detective Sergeant. Okay.
And I have met with Scott Singleton and yourself, at least on one occasion, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that was with Mr. Warner?
That's accurate.
Have you and Sergeant Singleton worked exclusively together on this case, or have you handled a portion and he has a portion?
What?
He and I are both investigating different aspects, but both have a working knowledge of each other's work. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. You're coming together, but you're handling a portion, he's handling a portion, but you're under the same umbrella.
That's
Oh,
accurate, yes, sir.
okay.
And has he been involved in this investigation as long as you have?
Yes, sir.
How many times have you visited Mr. Warren's property?
Which one?
Are you referring to where the residences, the Mungo Road property,
We're
or?
gonna go through all.
Even I knew that he has more. Which one are we talking about? Because I know they have businesses. So what are you talking about?
The residents.
Can I look at your notes?
This is a kind of an estimate of 4 or 5, maybe somewhere in there, sir.
Okay.
There may have been other times that I have been near there, but not physically stopped at the residence, so I'm not sure what that total number is.
Okay. And how many times you've been to his office? Same amount of times?
Roughly, yes, sir.
How about the barns and the fields in the area around his office? Same.
Roughly. There may have been times I visited the office, but not the fields perhaps, but in other words, I may have gone directly to the office and left without going through a field necessarily.
And when you have visited his home or his office or the barns or the fields, have you come into contact with Dale Warner?
Yes.
Okay. Have you come into contact with Mark Weisberg?
Not there. No, I believe the only time I've contacted Mark Weisberg in person may have been in this building. I don't think I've seen him at the property personally. I may have. No, I don't think I have.
Who else did you come into contact with at the home, office, whatever, that would have provided you information?
Outside of police personnel?
Yes.
Todd and Eric.
Who is Ted and Eric?
He works at the farm.
Okay.
I think for Laidlaw now, but he was an employee of theirs at the time.
Okay.
And Dale Warner's daughters.
Okay.
I think I may have come in contact with his mother once there.
Okay.
I'm sure there's someone I'm forgetting, sir, but that's the best of my knowledge now.
Fine. In the course of your investigation, have you spoken to each of these individuals?
Yes.
Independently?
Have they provided information concerning your investigation?
Wait a minute. So I don't like that questioning because he said he's talked to the daughter. And unless Dale has a child, that's older outside the marriage or something, I'm thinking it's the minor child. So not too typical for them to do an interview of the minor child. Maybe just like a preliminary one, but I would think they would want to have a like a forensic detective for minors to do the interview of her.
Yes.
Have they provided financial records?
Some of them. Yes.
Okay.
You
In
can't
other words,
you can't provide financial records for the guardian litem and the conservators. You want me to believe that you provided them for the detective?
went to Mr. Warner's office and asked for financial records. They provided them to you.
Still messing up financial records
I'm
now.
not sure they provided me financial records at his office.
Where would they have provided them to you?
They probably provided them to Detective Sergeant Singleton, and I'm not certain where that was, to be forthright.
Okay, but in your conversations with Sergeant Singleton, you're aware that they've provided documents?
That's correct. Yeah, I wasn't sure what you're getting at. Yeah, we've definitely received them. That's what you're asking. Yeah.
Yes. And has Mr. Weisberg provided you documents concerning the businesses?
Yeah, and an effort to save time, and you're saying you mean the investigation?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. And when did he provide you the documents?
I'm not certain on that. It's been some time, sir. And there may have been more than one collection, so. I couldn't even estimate because they weren't delivered to me. It was my partner. I'm not certain when that was.
Okay, but in concert with your partner, they were over a year ago, is that true?
If you say so.
He doesn't know. He
I'm
already
not sure.
answered you.
Okay.
I don't know. He just said, I don't know.
Did Mr. Warner and Mr. Weisberg provide you financial records of all of the Warner companies along with their personal financial records?
I'm not sure to what extent we had their personal financial records, but there was definitely records for the businesses. That's correct.
Do you recall them producing QuickBooks downloads and passwords for other investigators?
Are you aware?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Do you know who ran Dee Warner's office while she was working there?
Do I know what I'm sorry?
Do you know the structure of who ran Dee Warner's office while she was working there?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, and who was that?
It was a collection of Dee Warner, her son, Zach, Stephanie. The specific hands-on for quote unquote running the office is kind of convoluted, but I'm sure Todd had a hand in some of those responsibilities also.
Did Dale Warner have any hand in it at all? Did you know?
I'm sure there were some responsibilities that he had, but my understanding is he was typically out farming. That was his primary role.
Now, you mentioned that there was a collection of people there. Do you know what their roles were and what they were responsible for doing specifically?
Yeah, I'd like to object. I'm not sure of the relevance.
Thank you. Object to relevance. Object to the fact that he's not the PMK for the organizations. He is the detective for the missing persons investigation. Why are you asking him about the structure of her businesses?
So this line of questioning is,
Adjourn in the objection, Judge.
Because
I
they
adjoin. Me
asked
too.
for
Objection.
financial records, they've produced
Objection.
them, and there's been some allegation here that there's been some problems with missing money.
What?
There was an allegation.
What does that
earlier
have
that
to
was
do with who works at the?
$125,000 missing from the
Mm-mm.
Yo audit, trying to get to that and where it happened.
Okay, so money is stolen and you want the detective to tell you who operates the business? What are we doing here? I'll let you.
Allegation earlier.
Okay, I was talking over him, so I'm gonna go back so you guys can hear what he's representing.
There was 100 missing money, some
Objection, Judge.
yeah, I'd like to object. I'm not sure of the relevance of this line of questioning is.
Adjourn in the objection, Judge.
because they asked for financial records, they produced them, and there's been some allegation here that there's been some problems with missing money. There was an allegation earlier that was $125,000 missing from the Yo audit, trying to get to that and where it happened. I just want to know who was responsible for that. And I'm asking the detective if he knows.
I'm sorry, I thought he was the missing person detective. He's talking to him like he's the financial forensic detective. That doesn't seem to be the representation that this detective did any type of investigation on the financials, but maybe, let's see.
This was asked and answered on direct, but it's your cross-examination, so you're allowed to re-ask those questions. You may
Thank you.
proceed. The
Thank you.
objection's overruled.
Thank you.
Okay.
Was Zach Bach responsible for doing payroll and handling most of the finances with Dee Warner?
I believe that was in concert with her, but I think he was assuming many of those roles, yes, sir.
Okay. And he was a signer on all the accounts,
Who?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
checking
That was
out. Let me go back. I'm sorry.
most of the finances. Bach responsible for,
You may
Thank you.
proceed. The
Thank you.
objection's overruled.
thank you. Was Zach Bach responsible for doing payroll
Zach.
and handling most of the finances?
So
with
not
Dee
the
Warner?
husband, somebody else.
I believe that was in concert with her, but I think he was assuming many of those roles, yes, sir.
Okay. And he was a signer on all the accounts.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Did you come to find out that there was a diversion of money from Dee Warner to Zach Bach to purchase a home?
Yes,
Okay, and when was that done?
I couldn't tell you, sir, the exact date.
Okay.
I believe that, I don't want to venture a guess, I'm sorry.
Did you discover in your investigation that Zach Bach was responsible for writing checks to his mother after the date of her disappearance?
Oh,
That Zach was writing checks to his mother from her date of disappearance. I am not privy to that.
Zach, laundering money, are you? Oh, come on, people. Next question, next question.
Briefly, Judge.
May.
Judge, I don't have what Mr. Lee is referring to in my hand. I don't know what he wants to approach about.
This is a DDW investments summary that came right out of the book. There's a check that was produced
Who's by whom?
by the bank.
Yeah, sure, it's not enforcement.
No, for interior,
Yeah,
but that's, Your Honor, I would ask for more foundation. I don't believe that this witness testified as to specific bank records or checks that he reviewed in his investigation.
I didn't hear
And
it.
furthermore, Your Honor, I agree with the foundational aspect. This is alleged or purported to be someone's signature on here. I don't have any of that information. And you'd have to first lay a foundation to submit that. And
I was prepared to do that. That's what I was gonna do and show him the document.
well,
Sorry, Mr. Flood, you're.
Couldn't hear you.
apologizing for, Jeff?
I couldn't hear you.
I said, I think you're jumping the gun. I'm just gonna ask the detective sergeant a question. If he knows, he knows. If he doesn't know, he doesn't.
I
Well,
think those would have to be asked before you can present.
I'm sorry. Did you say that she kicked back? Like, that's not how it works. Like, you have to lay a foundation for the questions that you're getting ready to ask. You don't just grab the document and say, hey, do you know about this document? You have to give a foundation for why would he know about this document? You know, something like, detective, did you review any of the financial statements that Mr. Zach, any of his signatures or any of his records relative to the say the purchase of the house, right? Did you review the offer and the acceptance and the contract for the purchase of the house? Did you look at the deed at all? Did you look at the check stub and the amount from the check that he submitted for that of $125,000 to purchase the house? Did you look at any one of those documents? And the detective will say yes or no. And it's important because you already know he's already testified in great length that a lot of these records that he's speaking of actually went to his colleague. His colleague received them. He knows they exist. He knows we have them in possession, but maybe he doesn't know all the particulars that you're getting ready to ask. So you have to have a foundation to say, okay, well, since you've reviewed those documents, I would like to show you this document to see if this was a part of what you reviewed. Can you tell me, have you seen this document before? Here, Your Honor, here's a document. I'd like to, see if the witness has seen this document before, And he says, yes, I've seen this document before. Okay, can you tell me what the document is? Oh, it's a bank stub. It's a return check. It's whatever. And then you can say, okay, I'd like to admit this into evidence. This is like, you got to lay the foundation for why this evidence is even a conversation. But her face is, I just love her. She is phenomenal. She just makes all the great faces.
to submit that. And
I was prepared to do that. That's what I was gonna do and show him the document.
well,
Sorry, Mr. Flood, you're.
Couldn't hear you.
apologizing for, Jeff?
I couldn't hear you.
I said, I think you're jumping the gun. I'm just gonna ask the detective sergeant a question. If he knows, he knows. If he doesn't know, he doesn't.
I
Well,
think those would have to be asked before you can present him with the document.
You can have a look at the document and go from there.
What are we
Have
looking
you ever
at?
seen those documents, Detective?
I've seen numerous checks that are similar to this, sir. I can't speak to seeing this one specifically prior to right now.
Okay, so you are familiar with the fact that there were checks written to Dee Warner after her disappearance?
Well, no, Judge, I object to it.
That's not
We
what
don't
he
know the
said.
date those are written.
That's not what
We
he
don't know
even
the
said.
date, just because it says that, we don't know, so I object to the,
Well, not only do you, okay, so he's objecting to the physical representation of the checks. I'm objecting to the fact that that's not what the detective just said. The detective did not say, I have seen checks that were written out to Dee Warner. So yes, I have seen checks written out to her. He says, I've seen similar. I don't know if this is if this is particularly one that I have seen, but I've seen similar. And you have bypassed all of, have you ever known there to be a check written to Dee after her disappearance? If so, do you remember when or roundabout it was? Does this look like it could have been one of those checks? How many checks do you think?
formative
Oh
question.
gosh, what?
And he has laid a foundation
Yeah,
that,
like what kind
for that purpose.
of questioning is this?
So, help me understand, Mr. Lee, why it's important to note that there were checks that were issued after her disappearance.
Well, Judge, if there were checks issued after the date of her disappearance by her son or anyone else that was working in the office, that would account for why there was $125,000 missing.
I'm sorry, because checks were supposedly written to her after her disappearance. That accounts for 125 missing. Do they add up to $125,000? And were they cashed? Who cashed them? Were they deposited? Like, what are we talking about here? Did it go into a secret account? Is that what you're trying to say? How are we getting across the street? Oh my gosh.
How does that help me understand that that's part of the amount of money that's missing?
We don't necessarily know where the money is. We don't know that it was done in cash or whatever.
Actually,
So you don't know what happened. So you don't have the check from the bank that says this check was cashed, this check was deposited. You don't have the ID of the person who got the money from the check, who deposited the check. And then also, here's another thing. There are certain things that happen, say payroll, when you are a salary employee, that happen like on an automatic basis. And it just goes into your account. Doesn't necessarily mean that any one person has put it there. It's just you're on an automatic payment until they take you off of it. And maybe her son continued her payroll checks or her dividends checks. Maybe that's what this is. I don't know. But what the heck are you talking about? You don't know where the money went. So how is this going to be evidence for anything other than their paper?
this,
Were they even cashed?
the detective sergeant has already testified to that.
My
so
head
there's
hurts.
Whatever.
This is annoying. It's weird.
Actually, the detective sergeant has already testified to that, so if you have some cross-examination on that point, I'm happy to listen to that, but
That might be for another day, Judge. I'll move on.
Ms. Berger, did you have something you wanted to add?
Nothing additional, Judge, thank you.
Detective, I want to just get back to your interviewing the people that worked in the office. Did you interview everybody that was working there at the time that Dee went missing?
They have numerous employees, if you're referring to specific people that were working in the office at that time.
Mhm.
Myself and my partner, between the two of us, have interviewed all of them, yes, sir.
And it could be just questions about, hey, do you know what happened to her? And on, right?
That's accurate, yeah.
Yeah. Now, in your investigation, at the Warner property. Did you ever find Dee Ann Warner?
No,
Did you ever find anything that would reflect Dee Ann Warner, such as a body, a hair follicle, anything of her person?
Judge, unfortunately, there is a shield of protection for an ongoing investigation by the Michigan State Police and the FBI and the Sheriff's Department pursuant to both statute and case law, that he's not allowed to divulge anything is actually could come into consequence of trouble if he did divulge an ongoing investigation criminal, unless it was previously marked and subpoenaed information from and through this court. He can't get into an ongoing case. And if the court needs a body of case law on that, in civil proceedings, he actually would get in trouble for a violation of getting into his findings of anything regarding DNA, the like.
Okay, Mr. Flood, I'll move on. No problem, Judge. I withdraw that question. You did not find Miss Warner physically, though, did you?
correct.
Okay. And you have, to this day, over 2 years later, she's still missing, correct?
Correct.
Nobody that you know of, whether it was the Lenawee County Sheriff Department, the Michigan State Police, the FBI, the international network that you testified to earlier, nobody's been able to find her. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, you've been called to testify today because of your background and because of your experience, and I get that, and you have a wealth of experience, and I appreciate that. But as you sit here today, your testimony that she's deceased is your opinion. Is that true?
That is the findings of my investigation.
Okay. And the findings of your investigation are downloads from law enforcement websites, such as the Law Enforcement Information Network, correct?
I'm sorry.
That is a part of your, what forms your opinion is that there's been no activity on the law enforcement network.
A piece of it, yes, sir.
Okay. And help me, detective, if she hasn't been arrested and she hasn't had any contact with law enforcement at all, she wouldn't be on that lien, would she? The only things that are, you testified earlier, the only things that are on the lien are when you have contact with the police, right? Or some form of law enforcement.
Correct.
But
Okay.
not necessarily. What about if you get pulled over?
Likewise, the Secretary of State, if there isn't an issue with her driver's license and it didn't need to be renewed and she hadn't been stopped by a law enforcement officer and assessed points, and she hadn't gone to register a business or register a vehicle, she would not appear on the Secretary of State
All her vehicles were at
Information
home.
Network. Is that true?
Activity, that's correct.
During your investigation, you testified that you sought out the Secret Service and some other international bodies to help you search for facial recognition. and stuff,
Wow,
right?
Secret Service?
That's a standard proof of life request, yes, sir.
Okay, and that would be done in any case, anywhere, when you want to determine whether or not somebody's missing. Is that right?
Maybe not every case, but that's kind of standard practice for us at the state police, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to take you back to April of 2021.
Please don't.
We're in the middle of COVID, right?
Don't go back. Something
That's
like
during
that.
COVID, yeah.
There, I believe at the time there was a federal mandate that you had to wear a mask wherever you went. You agree with that?
If you say so, sir. I don't know the exact dates, yes, sir.
Yeah, let's be real, because 2020 was the thick of COVID. That was the beginning. Towards the end of 2020 and into 2021, I believe we were having the vaccination. So it was recommended for masking. I don't necessarily know if it was still mandated in April, but he's not the CDC.
And I'm ballpark dates, I get it. I'm not asking you for a specific date, but at that time, we all can agree that we were all wearing masks.
No, we
Public
can't.
places,
No, we
right?
can't.
Sir, okay.
No,
So if
I would still, he should not have changed his answer. I would have still maintained my original answer. I'm not for certain if we were all wearing masks in April of 2021. Heck, certain parts of the country, they never wore masks.
Ms. Warner was
And
wearing
they
a
know.
mask, how would that have accounted for any facial recognition anywhere?
What?
Are you asking me specifically a border crossing, sir?
Border crossing or anywhere else?
You have to take the
I'm
mask
unfamiliar
off.
with the practices of,
Okay, let me tell you something. If you go to TSA or you go anywhere where they're verifying your ID and your passport, they make you take your mask off so they can see your whole face, and then you put it right back on. So what you talking about there, Willis? What you talking about? And why are you expecting him to have this answer? I guess it's good to just ask him the question. He's up there, right? Until you get border control to tell you.
people that work, border control, et cetera, security.
Yeah.
I would assume they would ask you to remove your mask going through those things, but I can't tell you how they practice.
I can. They tell me.
Fair enough. And
Your mask off so I can see you, please.
Detective Sergeant,
Then they hold up the
in your
stuff.
wealth of
next to-
experience for many, many years, you've come in contact with what's referred to in lay terms as dark web, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what the dark web is?
The dark web is loosely known for being able to obtain and or purchase things that are less than legal. So
Okay.
whether it be illegal credit card information, drugs, stolen items, et cetera.
Less
Driver's
than
license,
legal.
In some cases, correct.
passport,
Correct.
and we don't know as we sit here today that Ms. Warner didn't attempt to purchase any of those products,
Objection, not in evidence.
do we?
I can say I found no evidence of her attempting to do that.
Okay, but we, as we sit here today, we don't know that for certain.
Oh, no, no, don't get your panties in a bunch now. You open the door, let him answer the question. We don't know, as we say, I can say I didn't find any evidence of it. He is the detective. He searched. There's no evidence of her purchasing those items on the dark web. So you don't like the answer, you want to ask it again? No. Objection, asked and answered.
Right?
Where are the opposing counsels at? We objecting all over the place. Relevance,
Detective
asked and
Sergeant, we know that
answered.
she's missing.
Well, Judge,
But-
Judge,
but you-
Judge.
No,
I stand
no.
to object on this.
Thank
because-
you, because he has the opinion that she's dead. He does not have the opinion that she's missing. His investigation has found, in his professional opinion, that she's no longer missing. She's officially dead in his opinion. You want to make him change his mind just because you like the way it
She's
sounds?
missing.
Well, Judge,
But-
Judge,
but you-
Judge, I stand to object on this.
Where have you
because
been?
it's
You
getting
should have been
equivocal. I
objecting a long
thought-
time ago.
If I understood it correctly, and I have the transcript, I
I'm not
have,
objecting.
the objection is he's withdrawn.
There's no argumentable objections. Oh, I would be so irritated if I was a judge. No back and forth between the two. You present the objection to the judge.
He's withdrawn.
I'm not objecting.
The objection is he's withdrawn. He's withdrawn his objection to the petition of why we're here today. He withdrew it and said that he has to concede. So if he says she's missing, that's misleading this court and this record.
Ah, look at her face. Well, counsel, what do you
Up
say to
until
that?
this court makes a legal determination that she's deceased. She's
No, but you
missing.
conceded to
I
the fact
do
that
not.
she said.
Disagree with what Mr. Flood said. We have withdrawn our objection to the petition. But I'm trying to clarify the evidence and just in my own mind, understand the Detective Sergeant's testimony.
No, he
If I might go through a few more things, then I'll be done.
The objection is overruled.
I don't agree. I don't agree. It should have been sustained.
Detective Sergeant, you talked with Mr. Flood.
Or maybe a
about
different
the
objection
power
should have
of
been
attorney.
brought forth. But,
And you testified earlier that you were not aware of the testimony of the power of attorney, right?
He was referring, I think, to an expert witness, and I was not here for that
Correct.
testimony.
Correct. Okay. So when Mr. Flood said that the signature was fraudulent, That's just based upon what their expert said, right? You don't know the circumstances behind the power of attorney.
Look at her face. It's so painful. It's painful for me too. And I know this must be a whole lot of pain for her because she's been, God knows how many hearings listening to these arguments and questionings and emotions and all kinds of different angles on this matter. There's 5 children, a husband, I guess a business partner. There's so many people involved. Everyone has representation. Thankfully, good to have representation. But consequently, everyone has a bone to pick with something, right? And so she is making faces, and I feel every last bit of this pain. Like, what are you talking about, counselor? What are you talking about? Get to the point.
Well, I may be misremembering, but he was asking me my investigative opinion, I think, in addition to that, sir.
Okay. Do you know how this power of attorney came about? Through your interviews with anybody, do you know why this power of attorney was dated October 20th, 2014?
My first understanding of the power of attorney surfacing is Dale Warner attempting to gain funds in Dee Warner's name at a bank, presenting the document and being rejected.
Okay. Do you know whether or not this durable power of attorney was drafted by an attorney?
I couldn't tell you, sir.
Listen, attorneys, as much as the conversation and the communication is more concise and they don't want the flurry of all of the butterflies and how beautiful it smelled and looked. I just want to know, across the street, I got to work, whatever it is. I just want to know the point to point. Because time is precious and they really just need the point. As much as that's the case, there is no attorney. There's no licensed attorney with more than a year of practice that's going to write up a power of attorney in a paragraph like that. I mean, like I said, you don't even say who the power is going to. You don't even say who the power goes to. And durable power only means that it passes through incompetence. There isn't even any language as to which powers are being transferred, which powers are given to mysterious persons unnamed. No attorney would write that up. No attorney did that. Not at all. I will not believe it. I don't care if you get the attorney to come and
Did
testify that
anybody
they
ever
did
tell
it.
you that it was drafted by an attorney?
Won't believe it.
I don't believe so, no, sir.
It looks like an attorney's work. That's why I'm asking you. Do you know whether or not there were?
The lies you tell. I wish we could see his face. Who is this guy lying like that? It absolutely positively does not look like an attorney's work. That's the whole point.
Strike that. In your investigation
And objection, counselor is testifying.
of the businesses and Dee Warner's disappearance, you were provided copies of operating agreements for the businesses.
Again, I think you're saying me, but the investigation was, so the chief
Yes.
said.
Yes.
Singleton of- Yeah,
Yes. And those operating agreements were drafted by attorneys, correct?
I couldn't tell you who
What?
drafted them, sir, was in there.
In the course of your investigation, did you ever interview an attorney named Jim Duzema?
I don't believe I've spoken with Jim.
He would be an attorney in Grand Rapids and he represented the Warners and their businesses. You don't, that name's not familiar.
I recognize the name, but I'm not certain. You know,
Detective Singleton have interviewed?
it's possible. I think I would know if he did.
Okay.
It's perhaps likely or possible that Detective Krecka, my predecessor, interviewed him.
Detective Breck is with the Leslie County Sheriff's Department.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you ever interview anybody at Yale and Yale?
I have not. The
I don't even know what
investigation
that
has.
was.
Okay, would have been Detective Singleton again?
Correct, and I don't want to mischaracterize that. I'm not certain it was a formal interview. I think we spoke with them and were provided documents in response to the search warrant.
Okay.
I'm not certain we've had a formal sit-down interview with them.
I don't know what they're talking about. I missed it.
So your analysis of the $125,000 accounted for, with 40,000 being mislabeled, 80,000 missing, and your determination that approximately 71,000 were payments by to K Jewelers and Victoria's Secret, leaving 9,000 missing.
$71,000 to K Jewelers, one of the cheapest jewelry stores there is, between K Jewelers and Daniels. Okay.
That would have come from Ionia, right?
Come from who?
By to K Jewelers and Victoria's Secret, leaving 9,000 missing. That would have come from Ionia, right? Or was that your calculation?
I'm sorry. So because they were paid to K Jewelers and Victoria's Secret, it's not missing? So we're just gonna automatically say that Dee Warner is the one who bought those things, and maybe not Dale Warner or someone else purchasing items for a different young lady. We're just gonna automatically assume it's Dee's purchases for 70,000 some odd dollars in one of the cheapest jewelry stores ever. Like,
That's our work product.
Your work,
what are we talking
your
about?
calculation.
That's our work product.
Your work. How did Miss Warner get the cash to make the payments on these accounts? If you know,
Who?
I'm not certain.
did anybody at the Warner companies, any of the people that worked in Dee Ann Warner's office, indicate how she was able to take that cash and pay those bills?
If it was cash, how do you know she paid them? What do we?
Figured out she would take the cash or how she would obtain the cash. I'm not clear on the question.
How she would pay in cash and how she would get it and make those payments?
My understanding is she was receiving a formal paycheck. Cash outside of that, there are withdrawals from different accounts and different activities that she was obtaining cash from her accounts.
Are you aware that Dee Ann Warner had an off-book bank account at TCF Bank?
I am.
Okay, and do you know what that account was used for specifically?
What are we talking about?
I don't know if it was used for a specific thing.
Okay. Can you suggest things that might have been paid for using that account?
I don't want to get ahead of you here. If you're getting to the lake house, I think that was one of the uses of the accounts. Is that what you're getting at?
No, but that's fine. Was it used to purchase jewelry, used to purchase other products?
I'm not familiar with exact purchases made from it. If it was cash from the account, I wouldn't know what the cash was applied to. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and we could just check the check registry or the register of transactions and determine that. So I'm not going to get into that with you, but you are aware that this TCF account was only her account.
That's my understanding. I think her son Zach may have been on it at one point, but I'm not certain.
Oh boy.
You testified earlier that Miss Warner's spending habits at K Jewelers were pretty vigorous, right?
I think I use the terms regular or consistent or something to reflect that. Yeah.
Okay, and do you know how long and over what course of time she made these purchases?
I believe we have records that go back to perhaps 2015, but prior to, and this is off memory, sir, forgive me, prior to 2017 or 16, there's less information obtained within, just based off of time. I think they lost some of the data.
Did you ever interview?
Actually, can I go back?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Of course you
There's-
can.
To not overcomplicate things, there are Comenity credit card records that are a reflection of K Jewelers, so I may be mixing information from one or the other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Comenity is a credit card servicer for that.
Right. Did you ever interview Ms. Coswell?
I have not.
There was some testimony earlier about this phone that with Dee's phone number and the phone, and I was confused, and I just want to go over that for a couple seconds and just clarify for myself what that was.
I know, Judge. What is he
So,
talking about? Judge is
Dee's phone
frowning. I'm
number
frowning, Lord.
was never turned off, right? In other words, from the date of her missing, even though there was no calls made, the phone number was still working, right?
Actively serviced through Verizon?
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And so from your testimony earlier, there were no calls.
Oh, okay. So her phone still had active service, but it has never made a call in 2 years.
Either coming in or going out on that period of time
But she's just missing.
until
Okay.
law enforcement asked Dale Warner to make a call. Is that true?
That information is not correct and your betrayal is not correct.
Okay, help me out. So now, earlier, there were no calls.
I love it when he gets frustrated. He just lets it rip. Take it back.
Right?
Actively serviced through Verizon?
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And so from your testimony earlier, there were no calls either coming in or going out on that period of time until law enforcement asked Dale Warner to make a call. Is that true?
That information is not correct and your betrayal is not correct.
Okay, help me out.
So there were calls incoming, for instance, her children looking for her, perhaps.
Okay,
And then law enforcement did not ask Dale Warner to do anything. Dale Warner asked law enforcement if he could obtain a phone and put the phone number on it.
okay. And do you know what purpose he wanted to do that? Was it toward the businesses?
That was his explanation to the sheriff's department, is my understanding.
Okay, because the business, bless you, because some of the vendors at some of the accounts for some of the businesses utilize that number, isn't that true?
One of the primary phone numbers for the business, right?
Okay, now it's clear. So, so Mr. Warner wanted to use that number because it was frequently used in the business prior to her disappearance.
I don't know what he was thinking, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I get it now. All right, let's go to the
I-
SBA.
What did he say? Oh, gosh, they're boring me. Hold on.
Bless you. Because some of the vendors at some of the accounts for some of the businesses utilize that number, isn't that true?
One of the primary phone numbers for the business, right?
Okay, now it's clear. So, so Mr. Warner wanted to use that number because it was frequently used in the business prior to her disappearance.
I don't know what he was thinking, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I get it now. All right, let's go to the SBA.
The way this attorney just testifies, it drives me crazy. Okay, so I guess Dale got into a point where he asked law enforcement if he could now, what do you say? So the whole point about, oh gosh, okay. So when you go to a new carrier, you can port your current number to the new carrier, which means you transfer from, say, Sprint to Verizon, or from Verizon to T-Mobile, wherever you're going to have a new account with, and you get a new device with it and everything. And so Dale asked law enforcement for permission to port Dee's cell phone number to a new line, or whether it's a new device or to his office, wherever it was going to go, because vendors had her cell phone and he didn't want to miss their calls. So how is anybody supposed to call Dee? How is she supposed to use this active phone? Because the first question was, this phone number remained active and is still active to today, right? This line is still active, giving the impression that, oh, well, Dell or no one has ever prevented her from communicating. But in fact, you have, because you've ported the number. So you've taken the number away from that phone, and that device has to go in to get a new number. So that's real nefarious.
For a minute.
Nefarious right there to me.
Do you know what the circumstances?
Because all you would do is call the vendors and say, listen, please update contact to contact us via this number, no longer using the cell number. We're no longer in possession of it. You wouldn't turn around and port the number and then say, oh, but she's had a phone all this time.
We're behind.
Wherever she is. she could just choose to call?
No.
Okay, what's the question?
Do you know what the circumstances were behind obtaining the SBA loan?
What? No. Oh, that's what he was
No.
forging the document or whatever?
Did you ever talk to the SBA about how they process a PPP loan?
What? Why?
No, we've received some records from them, but I've never spoken to someone. No, sir.
Okay. And it's all digital, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. There's no hand signatures on a PPP loan, right?
I have no idea, sir.
Would that have been something that you would have read or investigated as a part of looking into the SBA loan?
Whether or not there's wet signatures?
Yeah,
No, I have not. I have no information about that, sir. No.
okay. Do you know whether or not it was Dale Warner that requested the SBA loan, that applied for it?
I'm not sure how I would know that, sir.
Okay, so as you sit here today, you don't know whether or not Dale Warner or anyone else applied for it. You just know that there was an SBA, right?
I think that the records would indicate that he was the one that would apply, as he's the one that received the funds.
Okay, but you don't know the circumstances behind whether or not an operating agreement of the business or a power of attorney or the advice of counsel, another attorney, such as Jim Dusman, might have suggested that that was an appropriate way to make a loan application.
He's muddling up his question. His first question was, do you know if Dale applied for the loan? Now you're getting into, was he advised to do that? Like, it doesn't matter. So you can contract with someone to represent you and to act on your behalf, but you are responsible for what they do. So if you get someone to work on your credit and they lie and, and say your credit should be perfect and it shouldn't be, you're responsible for that. If you get someone to apply for loans for you, you're responsible for that. They're acting as your agent, so they're working on your behalf. And it's your responsibility to ensure that the things that they do are legal and true and honest. So all of this, it was somebody else's advice. And if you got the money and you gave them the power to work on your behalf, or someone else to do it for you, or they advised you to do it, you're still responsible for it, because in essence, it's you did it. What is his point?
Would you?
No, we don't know
sure
nothing of what you're
asking, I'm sorry.
talking about.
Okay.
We don't know what you're talking about, dude.
So when somebody makes an SBA loan, you call the SBA, you say, I want to borrow some money. Okay.
Do you
The
call them?
SBA says, okay, what's the money going to be used for?
Is that right? Is that what
And
happened?
then they investigate whether or not you're in a position to.
All of this freaking testimony is ridiculous. Objection, objection, objection. Counsel is testifying. And in a way that I doubt that this is factual. So how are you testifying this is to be evidentiary versus
Obtain a loan, whether or not you have sufficient collateral, business, whatever. Fair? Okay. In this case, when the loan was applied for, you don't know whether or not a business operating agreement or an other business document.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I believe that this witness already testified he has no knowledge surrounding the actual document for the SBA loan.
the process. Is he PMK for SBA? No.
Any response?
I testified that he had seen the loan for $1.5 million. I just wanted to know if you knew whether or not there was.
He is not the PMK for SBA. PMK is person most knowledgeable. You want to know about how SBA process loans and what they do, you need to talk to the SBA.
Any information that was contained in the loan.
What?
For $1.5 million. I just wanted to know if you knew whether or not there was any information that was contained in the loan.
This attorney makes my head hurt. He wants to know if there's any information contained in the loan. Of course there is. Every loan contains information. What type of information are you looking for, Dodo? I'm so irritated with him.
Knowledge, any response?
I testified that he had seen the loan for $1.5 million. I just wanted to know if you knew whether or not there was any information that was contained in the loan.
The way this is so loose and they're not having to go to sidebar to have these conversations make me believe that there is no jury um, there. I think this sounds like a bench trial because he is making all kinds of assertions. He is denoted that this is a $1.5 million loan. Was that in evidence? I didn't hear him say that. Did he say that? Oh my gosh.
Information like what?
Yeah,
Who
like what
signed
kind of-
it, what was based on, I mean, if the operating agreement allowed somebody involved in the business to make the loan, then it was a perfectly reasonable loan.
Terry stated he didn't see
Yeah,
signatures.
He didn't see the operating agreement. Judge, the document has already been entered into evidence as it relates to the loan documents. So, who signed it allegedly?
I'll overrule the objection. He's done a nice job of letting us know what he's seen and what he hasn't. So I think your witness can handle it.
I understand. Okay. Detective, in your investigation, when you were looking at the financial records, how far back did you go to look at those records? 5 years, 10 years?
I have a good working knowledge
Oh, we're
of
talking about
the
the SBA
finances
loan.
going back to
Oh my gosh.
2016. And to be clear, sir, we spoke of a concert of my partner and I. This is his ballpark. So I have a working knowledge of it, but he's the man behind the numbers.
He sure did say that. Documents and finances.
Do you know whether or not he looked at specific accounts and whether or not specific things were paid for by Ms. Warner or not paid for by Ms. Warner, such as payroll taxes or things like that?
When
Yeah,
we
I
speak
don't-
of, as far as a time frame, Judge,
I also don't believe that it's relevant. This witness has testified that there was activity, and then after her disappearance, there was not activity. I don't believe the specific activity while she was still around is relevant at this point.
Well, I love this. I think that this is attorney Ariel Berger who's speaking. I love her objections. I wish they would object more, but the judge is overturning the objections for whatever reasons. I think she feels that this particular witness is not going to get off put or derailed by some of the questioning that's being asked of him. However, I feel like the examining attorney is really giving a whole lot of leadway. He's talking about all kinds of stuff. I don't know pertinence or non-pertinence to it, because like I said, we just kind of fell into this trial, right? We were talking about all something together different, and this trial is just wrapped us in. I don't know. But
Judge, respond?
No. She's your client. I mean, that's fine. I'll move on, Judge.
Okay.
what is his response? She's your client? Huh? So I guess maybe she's the conservator attorney over Dee Warner. Maybe that's why he's saying that. I don't even understand that. The objection is relevance and a lack of time. Those are two objections that are on before the court. And he backs down. He says, no, it's your client. So no, I don't have a response. So why are you asking these questions? If you don't think that they have relevance, then why are you asking them? I don't understand that. Whatever. He probably just didn't care
Thank you,
enough.
Sergeant, did you meet with any of these children within the course of the investigation?
And you have Dee's children, I'm sorry?
Yes, these adult children.
Yes, sir, all of them.
Okay. And when did you meet with them and how many times?
I'm sure I met with them prior to us taking the case on full time. After that point, we began meeting with them for formal interviews in person, and I want to say it's October or November of last year. I've seen them numerous times subsequently, but for our formal interview was last fall, last winter.
Okay, and was there a standard set of questions that you asked each to the individual kids?
I don't believe our question to be standard, no, sir.
Yeah, what?
Kids. Okay, and was there a standard set of questions that you asked each to the individual kids?
I didn't even understand the middle part of that. It's a standard set of questions. And remember, kids. So maybe you asked of these kids. Maybe that's the insert there.
I don't
What's he
believe our question
talking
is
about?
standard, no, sir.
Mm,
Depends on the person, what we believe they may have known, where they were at the time, et cetera.
yeah, tell me what you know. Mhm.
And so you interviewed Zach, you interviewed TJ, you interviewed Raquel,
Oh my gosh.
and you interviewed Amber. Were they all interviewed individually or
Poor
together?
babies.
Everybody was
Right,
interviewed individually.
Tuesday.
Did you ever interview Greg Hardy?
I've spoken with Greg Hardy a number of times. I'm not certain I've done a formal interview in that capacity, sir.
Where were the interviews conducted with the children?
We typically use Saline Police Department.
Okay, so in case you are not aware, when the what do you call these police officers are doing interviews, you can interview someone and it can be informal. Where is it? Maybe it's at their house, maybe it's at the school or at the workplace, and you just get some generalized information. But when you have a formal interview, you want them to come into the police station. Usually they're recorded. You have sit down with them, go through all the points, and then maybe even have them write out an official statement and sign it. And that becomes a part of the file. The first interview is more like of a conversation, just generalized understanding. They may ask you some questions. They may even take some notes down. But a formalized interview is usually necessary for the preservation of the facts for the file. And so they have you write it all out. And this way, if another detective picks up the file, they know what your statement was. And what typically happens is some time will pass and they'll go back and do another formal interview with you so they can see if you've made any changes in your statement. Because as time goes, you forget your details, usually, especially if you're lying.
Were there any notes taken of those interviews?
How is this relevant, Your Honor? Objection relevant.
I think it's relevant. Mr. Flood, this is cross-examination of a lead witness in your case. I'm just curious as to what he discussed with the children
Well,
of the person that's missing.
and I go back to the previous objection,
Oh.
Judge, as it relates to an ongoing investigation.
Yeah, we're back into missing.
Objection is overruled. He may answer questions about the contents of this investigation. And again, I trust our detective sergeant to understand his own boundaries around an ongoing investigation. So we'll let him handle that question.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't agree with that at all.
In terms of
I'm not the judge.
your questioning them, did you question them on things that related directly to their mother or the circumstances between their mother and other people, or both?
Both.
Do you recall any conversations about a woman named Amy Alexander?
Amy
I don't know
Alexander.
how much I spoke to other people about Amy Alexander, but I've spoken to Amy Alexander.
Okay, you had conducted an interview with her?
Yeah, I've spoken to her several times, yes, sir.
Amy, girl, you a hot topic. What you know? Come tell us what you know.
Did you ever discuss anything with any of Dee's adult children about any of Dee's finances and whether or not she lent them or gave them any money?
Yes,
And how extensive were those conversations? Were they ever asked to produce any documents to substantiate anything they were telling you?
I'm unsure. I'm unsure if I've asked them to produce documents at this point. And my uncertainty is because I know I have the documents. I'm not sure if they gave them to us or we acquired them through a search warrant or other means. That answers your question, sir.
I think it does, and I'm not going to delve into too much of that detail today. Did you ever interview Billy Little?
No,
Okay. Do you know who Billy Little is?
unfortunately.
Okay. Can you just tell me who he is?
I have a vague understanding of, he's perhaps a self-described private investigative attorney, is I guess the fairest way of representing him.
But he's not a Michigan attorney, is that true?
I have no idea.
And it's your testimony, you haven't talked to him other than just briefly?
He met with the sheriff's department. I was there. I was kind of a formal contact, but otherwise it's been informal in passing.
Okay. And did you obtain any of the results from the sheriff's department? That was included with everything else they gave you, right?
If I can back up, I was a part of that meeting also.
Okay.
So I don't know what you're referring to, receive something, but
So when the sheriff's department transferred the case to the Michigan State Police, is the sheriff's department involved in this case at all anymore, or?
no, sir.
Okay, so they transferred everything to you guys, and now you and Detective Sergeant Singleton, sorry, are leading this investigation, and it's up to you as to what moves forward from there.
Yes, sir.
And that was done as of March last year, 2022.
No, sir.
Okay, what was that done?
First week of August, I think, maybe the second week of August last year. March is when we started assisting from the sidelines, but
I see. And by assisting, you got up to speed, so you learn a little bit about what they were doing, and then you and your partner took over the investigation in August of 2022.
correct. Yes, sir.
Couple additional questions. When Mr. Flood went through exhibits 22 and 23 with you, the ProMedica records and the Henry Ford Health Systems records, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield records, I think that was 24. You testified that you noticed that Dee Ann Warner had chronic conditions for migraines, neck and back problems. She sought counseling and had a primary care doctor and dentist, and that she was being treated for these chronic illnesses, right?
To be clear, sir, I think I had learned of that elsewhere and confirmed them with those documents.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
fair enough. And you were aware that she was taking a laundry list of medications as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you
I'm not sure I
ever,
agree with the term laundry list, but I'm on board. I understand.
you know how many drugs?
I couldn't tell you, but there were several drugs that were consistent.
Okay. And a lot of them too, right?
A lot is your term, sir. I'm not sure I would characterize it that way.
Okay. When you went to visit the Warner home,
Why not just give an aggregate number? Why not just say between 5 and 10, 2 and 3, 4 and 6, whatever you think the number is? Why a lot and all these other all these other characterizations? And if you have chronic back pain, like between 2 and 3 pills, I don't even understand how you can do more than that. Like different medicines. Like, what are you talking about?
did Dale Warner ever provide you
Narco,
a list or
Oxy.
show you all of the pill
Maybe
bottles
one
that had been
other.
prescribed in these names?
Doesn't mean she's taking them
I
all
don't
at
think
that
he has
time.
ever shown me that, no, sir.
So your reference of the medications came from ProMedica, Henry Ford, or Blue Cross, or CVS, where the
Henry Ford.
prescription was on file at the time of her disappearance.
There are other avenues that I have that.
So I don't know what Henry Ford is, but I know Betty Ford is a out here is like an addiction rehab place. So I don't know if Henry Ford has anything to do with that, or if that's just a medical provider. Not
that
sure,
information.
Okay,
but
can you share those or you can't?
No, I
Nobody
can't. I
knows.
just didn't,
Okay.
I don't want to get.
Yeah, and
In
where else would you have found that information?
searching the residence, I'm familiar with where her prescriptions were stored in a certain cabinet. I also know of investigative videos and photos of the like previously
Okay.
becoming involved. And there is a resource law enforcement uses to see the prescriptions that are prescribed to an individual. So you can perform a query, like if I were to come in contact with you on the street and you had numerous prescription pills,
Yeah.
I can run a query and see if you have those legitimately or not.
Fair enough.
Well, people, there you have it. Law enforcement can find out anything.
There was a question about a Premier bank account. Do you know whether or not that bank account is still in existence?
I believe so, but I'm not certain.
If I told you it was closed 9 months ago by the state of Michigan, and it was pursuant to a subpoena that Mr. Olderman sent the other day, you'd be okay with that?
Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry, sir. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, I have nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Any other cross-examination, counselors?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, boy.
Detective Sergeant, I'm Mr. McFarland. I'm the attorney guardian ad litem for Dee Ann Warner.
Well, sir,
Oh, is it okay if I address you as Detective Sergeant?
detective's fine, sir.
Detective, okay, thanks. Part of what I do is I'm here to present to the court what I believe is in the best interest of Dee Ann Warner. And I know that you have said that your belief is that she's deceased, correct?
Well, I don't want to muddy the water, sir, but my investigation has led us to believe that she is
Thank you.
deceased.
And I'm sure your investigation would also involve a possibility of her being abducted, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what you did to rule out abduction?
Everything.
What does that consist of?
I can't go into too great a detail, sir, but
Fine.
essentially there are only so many ways a person could be physically abducted. So I use the word physical intentionally.
Okay.
Having come to know of Dee Warner as a person, there would have been a physical abduction. You're not escorting her to a van. So without signs that would indicate that type of anomaly, or signs after the fact, such as a ransom or demands, or the discovery of her body somewhere because there was no ransom or demands, or a person being guilty of a similar party act in the area admitting to such a crime. Those are the ways you would typically find an abductor, so to speak.
I would assume that on investigations, neighbors are asked and cameras are surveyed in the area to see if there was any suspicious activity, such as a vehicle to transport somebody in an abduction. Would that be an accurate general statement?
Yes, in addition to that, there are numerous means of detecting electronic devices in certain areas to determine, for instance, if you and I are out to lunch and we say someone perpetrated a crime against us, there should only be 3 devices there. If that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. So basically, your professional opinion is that you can rule out abduction. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That helps me.
I just love that line of questioning. So poignant, sensible,
And if
linear.
you can't answer this, let me know, because I'm not sure what your constraints are, but are there suspects as far as her missing?
Are you asking if there's a suspect for her murder?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you reveal that?
Dee Ann Warner?
Thank you. Is there anybody else who is the suspect in her murder?
Not a viable one, no, sir.
Okay, so he is not mixing words at all. Straight up and down, the husband is the suspect. He used to be a person of interest. Right now, he is the suspect of murder. Wow, my God.
What do you, I don't know the terminology when you use viable, what do you mean by that?
For instance, I can't give a specific one, but if I were to receive an anonymous tip saying you should talk to so-and-so because he didn't like Dee Warner. So those types of tips have been received and vetted thoroughly. So every investigative avenue to eliminate Dale Warner and find another culprit has been executed, unfortunately, to no avail.
Thank you. My understanding is there were no signs of forced entry. Would that be correct?
So you're referring to the Munger Road residence? That's
Correct, at the Munger Road.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I know we've seen the YouTube videos, and so we know that there exists some type of video surveillance on the Munger Road property, correct?
Yes,
You viewed those, correct?
correct.
Nothing would reveal to you there's been an abduction, correct? Based upon your.
Nothing from that video would imply or show that a unknown third party abducted Dee Warner.
Thank you, okay. By that, I think what you're perhaps saying but not saying is that it's a possibility that Dee Warner could have had something to do with her missing, correct?
So I've labeled him as a suspect. I'm not going to get into.
That's fine, okay, yep, I appreciate that. If you can, and I don't know if this is a parameter that I can't ask, but can you explain how you determined that Dee Warner did not obtain anything from the dark web? I know there's a question asked about her obtaining, let's say, a fake passport or something like that.
At the risk of sounding cute, sir,
Yeah.
I think you could obtain a passport on the dark web.
I've never been on the dark web, so I have no idea. You know, we all watch TV shows. I don't know what's reality and what's not.
So access to it has to be permitted by people that are currently on the dark web.
Okay.
So in doing so, there would be a digital footprint of that access. Additionally, if you could find the means to then purchase something off the dark web by means of probably some sort of cryptocurrency, there would yet again be a digital footprint of that usage. Separately, probably, this is my opinion, I guess, in some approximation, 85% of what you purchase on the dark web is not what you think you are purchasing. For instance, for probably $100, I could go on there, or someone in my position could go on there and purchase 100 credit card numbers with a last name and birth date, assuming I could use that fraudulently. Probably less than 20% of those are viable or useful. Does that make sense? So most of what you're buying is from another criminal that's going to give you something that isn't what you want anyhow. So the likelihood of someone in Dee Warner's position, who can, forgive me, but barely use her own phone, going onto the dark web to purchase a viable passport or driver's license with no means, I'm sorry, but it's laughable.
What do you mean by barely using her own phone? I don't know what that means.
Her ability with technology wasn't the greatest, sir.
I appreciate that.
By no disrespect to her, but
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. Is there any evidence of large withdrawals by Dee Warner after the 4/25/21 disappearance date? Any withdrawals by her personally?
none.
I believe. No, there's no evidence that she cashed any checks after 4/25/21 either, correct?
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you for your information.
Okay, wait. So what was all that talk about? All these checks made out to her after the fact. They were never cashed by anybody? Come on. So misleading. And I don't like them being in the same room. I had felt that way in the very beginning because it shouldn't be talking to one another, but that's just my opinion. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I think they should have been separated.
Detective, you testified that in relation to the Secret Service documents, that there has been no activity related to Ms. Warner's passport or her name and photo. Is that correct?
Correct. If I could further clarify, that type of query is conducted in a search for, I'm hoping to find that record. So I want anything and everything that would suggest her presence somewhere physically. And that was not discovered.
And that would, that search includes, for instance, if her photo was used with a different name.
Exactly.
Or if her name was used with someone else's photo.
Precisely.
And those things didn't come up either way, correct?
That's accurate, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in relation to the Verizon phone that you testified about, was this phone eventually shut off?
I'm unclear on whether or not it maintained active service. As recently as this past late winter or spring, the business, air quotes, the business was utilizing that phone number again. I'm unsure if it maintained continuous activity since then.
And what do you mean by using that phone number?
In the course of our regular investigation, I'm monitoring that phone number. And it appeared to, again, have usage, and I was then informed by someone from the family that, oh, we're using it again for the business. That makes sense.
Do you know if it's being made to make calls or receive calls?
I think at the time there weren't very many records, and I think it was a variety of both.
Yeah, so that's when they ported the number. And so the activity is only when the business was using the number. Oh, it's so sad. So sad.
And you have investigated several of these types of cases, is that correct?
This case is unique, but numerous homicides and missing people, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And during those investigations, do people's loved ones generally shut off those phones? Do they leave them on? What do they do with them if they have them?
In a situation where someone's leaving willingly, ma'am, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Their phone would usually be kept on, or immediately upon leaving, a secondary number would be created so they continue contact with their other loved ones or family.
And in investigations where the person has not left voluntarily?
In investigations where the person has not left voluntarily, typically the phone will remain active until people have different means. If a family can't continue to pay that phone bill, it may have service shut off. If that makes sense.
It does. And you testified briefly to the power of attorney that was attempted to be used to gain access to a bank account. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And what bank account was this, if you're aware?
You have to forgive me, ma'am. I can't recall if it was Premier or if it was the credit union.
Okay.
But it was one of the two. I'm sorry.
And do you know what specific account that was attempted to use to access?
It was an account in solely in Dee Warner's name.
Okay. And did that access work?
No, ma'am.
Do you know why?
The bank teller, to my understanding, had at least a suspicion that the signature was not Dee Warner's and therefore rejected the use of the power of attorney.
Okay.
Wow.
And are you aware if that account still exists today?
I'm unsure. I had my memory refreshed earlier that the conservator may have closed some of those accounts. I'm not certain if that was one of them.
Okay.
As far as that powers of attorney is concerned, I really hope that that was just the signature page that we saw and that there was other elements to it. It doesn't seem like there was anything else, but for the bank teller to only have concerns about the signature, which I'm glad she had concerns because clearly there was an issue with the document. But for her to only have concerns about the signature, it's like, did you read the document? Did you see the vagueness, completely open, unidentified power of attorney element? And I mean, anyway.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Oh, okay. Polderman's on. Where you been, Polderman?
Sorry. Yes, good afternoon. Well, close to it.
Ma'am?
I'm the guardian ad litem for Angelina Warner. That's my position here today. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your investigative finding that Dee is dead. So I heard your testimony today, and that finding was based on the things that you testified today to the court about the absence of uses of insurance and the absence of using up of checking accounts, the absence of buying stuff and getting passwords. Is that correct?
In a way, ma'am, my testimony today is a reflection of her life, not necessarily of the circumstances of her death. Does that make sense?
It does. And so your finding that she is dead is based on no proof of life. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. That would be my finding for her to be deceased, not for the method or means in which she died.
Okay, but you did testify today that she is dead.
Yeah, and again, I'm not playing cute.
No, I know,
Understand.
you're fine. And I'm just trying to get to what you base that on. And I'm wondering if there was anything outside of your testimony today that helped to lead you to that finding?
That's a good question, ma'am. So my testimony today to reflect her, whether or not she's alive is probably, I would venture to say 2% of the findings of the investigation. So the finding of the investigation that would suggest that she's not alive is overwhelmingly in support of the fact that she, that her death was within a criminal element. Does that make sense?
Okay, are you at liberty to discuss any of those?
No, ma'am.
All right, so your testimony then is that 2% basically is the no proof of life
That's
that we
correct.
discussed today.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the bulk of what went into your finding, you're not at liberty to talk about today.
Due to the criminal element, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, I'll redirect. Well, let me ask you this, are we gonna be able to conclude by noon, or should we plan on inviting our detective back after lunch?
I have 4 questions to ask after he's done.
Then I probably suggest we go to lunch, Judge,
Right?
because 4 questions is gonna take more than 10 minutes.
How many questions do you have?
Not many. I don't know, about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. If you want to continue, I don't have a problem.
I agree, Judge.
I'd like to try to see if we can get.
Sure,
this tested.
sure, I'll try to be quick.
Take time, Judge.
Thank you. Good, all right, well. We'll see how this goes.
Did you say that was? Detective Sergeant, I just have a few questions. When I asked you your opinion on Dee Warner, you had indicated unequivocally that your investigation, she is dead, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you dead in a homicide investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Homicide is defined by an unnatural cause of death. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
You have been working through this case with the team. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And to give the court some, just to make the record clear, your team consists of your resources at the Michigan State Police,
And then some. Yes, sir.
outside of the Michigan State Police, yes?
Correct.
Special agencies,
Yes, sir.
both federal and state.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And over a period of time, I think you said sometime in March of last year, or I mean, of this year,
March of last year.
last year?
We started helping in August was full time for us. Yes, sir.
I say August of 2022.
Correct.
So that's coming up to a year.
I think
That's,
we just hit a year. Yes, sir.
and in some investigations, that's a nanosecond, fair to say?
Correct.
But in this investigation, if you had to give this court, because not everyone's familiar with criminal investigations, if you had to give a bird's eye view of the man hours, power, resources, money that went in to formulate your team's opinion that this is a homicide, could you give the court some estimation?
That would be very difficult, but I could explain briefly some of the resources that would help, sir.
Sure, I think that would help to give us an understanding of how in depth this is.
I personally probably work an average of 50 hours a week, sometimes on this case specifically up to 80 hours a week. I have been on nothing but this investigation since last August. My partner, who has a similar schedule, has been on nothing but this investigation since last August. We have a third detective who has been on this case about 80% of the time up until June. Now he's on it maybe 10% of the time for other reasons not related to the case. Separate than that, we conducted, I've probably written over 100 search warrants, sir. We've searched 4,000 acres with over 120 people in a matter of a few days. I couldn't begin to tell you the money that this has cost.
You've mentioned 3 people, multiple searches.
I'm having a hard time even categorizing. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss to.
But the gravamen of of this investigation, you've come to this opinion. I'm just trying to get an understanding. This wasn't on a whim with 1 or 2 investigators. This is a year of investigation with hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, into this resource for you to make a determination, is what you're telling the court.
That's accurate, yes, sir.
I've looked through the bank records of what we've had and it's submitted, and have you had the opportunity to look to see after after April 24th, how fast money was being attempted to be converted in one way or the other?
I'm not object to this. He hasn't said who, where, what. Mr. Flood, don't testify, just ask the question.
I just asked.
My objection is he's testifying for the witness.
Oh, this can't be the same guy who talked for 20 minutes before he asked a question. Can't be the same attorney. This is why I wish we could see the attorneys, because if he's objecting to this very simple question, you got to be kidding me.
I just asked if he had come to find out when money, how soon thereafter.
Yeah, to characterize the money moving in one direction or another. Was it a quick time? In which direction was it moving? Who was moving it?
24th, that date.
Come on now.
It started being changed or converted, if you know.
There's been no suggestion that any money was converted or changed.
Well, let me ask you this question. Did you come to find out if any money had been changing from Dee Warner or the like? We just talked about the power of attorney and that process. Did you come to find out about any other information regarding conversion or trying to get money from Dee Warner's accounts? And if you can't get into that, I understand.
Money and other resources, yes, sir.
Okay. How soon thereafter of April 24th, if you know?
I apologize for the exact date escapes me, but within I believe 2 weeks, it might be 3 weeks at most, there was an attempt to gain access to some of her funds by Dale Warner at that bank.
So if she is voluntarily missing, she has decided to leave the world behind. Not dead, but just missing. It only takes you 3-4 weeks to start moving her money around. If she's missing, then she needs her money, right? So why are you touching her money? Why are you taking her money? Not the business money, but hers. If you think she's still alive and is not going to call you in the middle of the night, what happened to my money? What did you do with my money? Why are you in my account? If she's not going to blow you up on the phone. If she's alive, I mean, she would blow you up on the phone. Why would you take her money? Why would you move it? Unless she felt like she wasn't going to be able to call you. She didn't have an ability to call you. Or did you move it to ignite her to call you to see if she would respond? Maybe. Depends on how you spin it, I guess. But wow, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. You're moving her money around in a month after her disappearance. But she's still alive 2 years later. Did she ever yell at you about moving her money around?
Did you, Mr. Leave to ask you some questions with regards to financing and the like Did you come to find out that in fact, Mr. Weisberg was, prior to April 24th, 2021, he was fired by Dee Warner?
Oh, yes, sir, I can
Huh?
offer.
Mr. Weisberg was, prior to April 24th, 2021, he was fired by Dee Warner?
Oh, yes, sir, I can offer a bit of explanation if you'd like.
Sure.
Oh, please.
It's my
do.
understanding that Dee and Mark did not get along for personal, professional reasons, whatever it was. And that through the course of business, it was, at least of her opinion and others, that Mr. Weisberg was setting a stage, so to speak, to embezzle money from the company. And that in combination of their personal differences.
Sir, I'm gonna object to this testimony. There's been no foundation laid that anybody did anything. There was no embezzlement, diversion.
Well, no, you brought up the whole portion about the investigation with regards to funds.
Right. You were the one who said $125,000 is missing, and all these other people had access, like her son. So you were disparaging her son's name and presenting that her son was taking money and buying houses and doing all kinds of stuff and with money moving around. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Why are you complaining now? Let the man testify.
Did anything. There was no embezzlement, diversion.
Well, no, you brought up the whole portion about the investigation with regards to funds.
What proof is there that Mr. Weisberg had anything to do with any of this?
That's his testimony, Judge.
What is the nature of your objection specifically?
Like, once again, Mr. Flood is testifying. Number two, Mr. Weisberg's not involved in this case at all. I'm not sure why his name is even being brought up, other than he worked there after Dee Warner disappeared. There's been no testimony whatsoever that we did anything illegal or unethical or wrong. Nothing.
Well, your
This
objection.
whole idea that Dee Warner, Dale and Dee were married. They're still married. Mr. Warner has the authority to act on her behalf. Certainly up until the time of the conservatorship was put in place. There's nothing illegal about this. I'm not sure why it's being portrayed that way.
So relevance and testimony, I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection on the basis of testimony. As to relevance, Ms. Berger standing.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that Mr. Lee opened the door to the many employees that worked in the office at the time of Dee's disappearance. Mark Weisberg being one of those people.
Mr. Weisberg did not work there at the time of his disappearance.
Let's let Ms. Berger finish her response.
Sure, there were several people that worked in the office at the time of Dee's disappearance, and shortly thereafter, those things have changed. So I think that if we are allowing testimony, which this court did, related to those individuals that work there and who no longer work there, I think it's only fair to allow testimony as related to the individuals that do currently work there.
Did you have any further response, Mr. Flood?
And Judge did. His whole line of questioning was as it related to the financing. I just asked simply if he knew about the situation with the finances and Dee Warner pre-24, April 24. So that's what I was getting into when he was explaining.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think we did have a lot of testimony on who's working in the office and the financials, which was spearheaded in large part by Mr. Lee. So I'm going to allow the testimony. Make it to.
You were answering the question about Ms. Warner firing Mr. Weisberg, and then in turn giving us some explanation of what had taken place once April 24th, if I understood correctly, she's hired again. He's hired again.
And to be clear, sir, I know that he was definitely employed there. That employment ceased. If he was fired, quick, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I believe he was fired, but in any case, after April 25th, he resumes his employment there.
Okay. And do you not know about the lawsuit that Mr. Weisberg filed against Dee Warner after she
I'm
filed?
not familiar with that. No,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
So she fired an employee that upon her disappearance, he rehired and this employee sued the company? I don't care. I don't care. Like you never rehire someone that sues the company. That could have been your brother. You never rehire. I don't know. Mm-mm.
You got into with Mr. Lee about relationships and speaking with Dale Warner. Did you have information through your investigation that Dee was a victim of domestic violence?
I'm gonna object to that.
Well, that's what you talked about in the relationships.
I never mentioned the word domestic.
No, you
violence in
didn't.
Anything I said, and this witness wouldn't know that. He never met Dee Warner.
Well, it's not,
There's
you
no
know, it's
personal
not about,
Not necessarily, because if she filed a incident report, he would have access to that.
whether or not he met Dee Warner, it's whether his investigation revealed that.
I'm gonna object to this.
And it's already been placed in the record by 4 other witnesses in the previous hearing.
One witness suggested
No,
that,
that's not true.
one witness who was a massage therapist
The very,
suggested she saw some bruises. That was it.
no,
I have the
that's,
transcript.
I have the transcript. I just read it.
Gentlemen, would you say that this is outside the scope of the redirect? Was it something that was discussed during the cross-examination of any other witness?
Yes.
Or any
Yes.
other,
Two-
of any other
yes.
counsel?
Two parts, Your Honor. He brought up the relationships with regards to Dale and Dee and whether or not there was investigation into that. Second, we already have it established on this record by 2 witnesses. The very first witness, Dale's sister-in-law, talks about domestic violence. Then the massage therapist talks about domestic violence. I simply asked if this investigator had, in his investigation, come upon that knowledge. That's all I wanted to ask.
All right, any further response to that, Mr. Lee?
I think it's irrelevant. I don't think it matters. And I don't think he's interviewed anybody that would have had any contact with her post her disappearance. We don't know. We don't know. It's pure speculation, Judge. And this is a topic that I know Mr. Flood wants to get into later with a potential witness he wants to testify. And I filed my motion to strike that witness. This is not appropriate, Your Honor.
Well, Mr. Lee, I do think you've opened the door on that with your questions, so I'm gonna overrule the
I
objection.
never asked a question about
I'm gonna
domestic
allow
violence,
the
Judge.
witness to,
Ooh, he is tap dancing when the judge is talking. No, you do not talk over the
respond
judge.
to the question. Thank you.
Can you repeat it? I'm sorry, sir.
During your investigation, did you ever come across any information that pertained to domestic violence between Dale and Dee?
Yes, we've had more than one witness report that. In addition, we have what I will say is physical evidence to support that also that I unfortunately cannot get into, sir.
Thank you.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow.
You understand, to some extent, Dale Warner is taking a Fifth Amendment privilege. Have you attempted to, did you know that he has taken the Fifth Amendment in this case?
Oh, yes, sir. I was informed of that. I'm sure it was last week or the week before.
Thank you. I have no other questions, Judge. I do have the.
Why you not object relevance to that?
is,
That was irrelevant.
10 to
Forgot to do
15.
his
I
investigation.
can approach.
10, 15, and 36, have your fellow counsel had a chance to review those and?
I don't know if you have or haven't.
He
confirm?
circulated several months ago, Judge.
No objection.
No objection.
Mr. Lee, do you want to look at these?
I was.
All right, you may approach. I have before me 10 and 15. No.
Your Honor, if I might just add, when we stipulated to a non-jury trial, I thought we also stipulated to all the proposed exhibits that Mr. Flood had.
The proposed exhibits that I received that were, no problem, submitted to the court, several of them referenced live testimony only, Mr. McFarland.
Thank
So
you,
I
Your
didn't have those, which is why we're reviewing them. Mr. Colderman, did you need a chance to look at these two documents, or are you satisfied with the inquiry that's been done on the record?
I'm satisfied with the inquiry, Your Honor.
Thank you. They are received then, and we'll be adding to our books. Did you say you wanted me to have a copy of 36?
Yes, Judge.
So 10, 15.
I just got to go faster. I'm sorry. I can't.
I just had to say, check my.
That's where we sit around. Don't have it printed out.
So I have on the proposed exhibit 36, 1, 2, 3 pages only.
That's accurate, Judge. There's a signature page that I think I accidentally or inadvertently gave back to Mr. Lee, but I'll print out a second copy.
In any event, Judge, that signature page has already been entered through the expert.
Expert
to the
printer.
hearing.
Which exhibit was that?
Remember the page 6.
I believe 16, but I'm not.
If you look to your page, Your Honor,
It was an examination of it done on a.
yeah, and we entered it, put it on page 6. If you look at the thing I gave you, it would have been the expert opinion, and he attached to that expert opinion the forged signature composites.
The forensic document examination report?
That's accurate.
Okay, I do have that provided. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other objections to the first 3 pages of the power of attorney for 36?
No,
Nothing, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. That will be added as well.
thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Sergeant.
Come on, people. Let's go.
You never met Dee Warner, right?
No, sir.
Oh, somebody else is cross-examining.
And so all of your testimony today is based upon either your investigation, and I mean yours, meaning your collective investigation with your partners, or interviews you conducted with people, right? There's no personal knowledge. You have never met.
Interview is investigation. Come on,
You
people.
testified a few minutes ago that Dee Warner had a lack of technology. How do you know that?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is outside the scope of a redirect, or I'm sorry, a recross. This was not covered in the redirect.
So just
I just want to know what he means by a lack of technology.
Then you should have asked it in your first cross.
Well,
It was brought up after my cross.
that's true. It was brought in under Mr. McFarland's cross-examination. So
Fair.
we'll go over the judge. Go ahead.
What would you say? Why would you say she had?
Okay, so this is like stylistic or rules of court. So you have direct, you have cross-examination, then you have redirect. And the redirect is based upon what came on under cross. So you're redirecting relative to your questions that you gave in the direct that relate to whatever new kind of pieces of information that came out of cross. And then after that, you have recross, which is out of your count, the opposing side's redirect questioning. If something new came up, then you recross them based upon the new pieces. And so she's saying, objection, he should have followed up when he originally asked the question. He should have followed up regarding his knowledge of her technical ability. And in fact, it wasn't on direct that the technical questioning came out. It was under cross-examination. So he is in the right to redirect on that subject matter because it's something new that came out during cross-examination.
A lack of technology.
That is a compilation of witness interviews and a review of devices that she had previously owned or possessed.
Do you know
And
what
records
Miss-
thereof.
Do you know what Miss Warner's educational background was?
I couldn't tell you exactly, no, sir.
Okay, you know whether or not she had any college degrees?
I don't believe she did, no, sir.
Everything.
Okay, objection to the implication that one requires a college degree to fully utilize technology as a consumer user operator, especially cell phones. I think that's a reach. And he's probably based, well, I would hope he would be basing it on some of mostly what she used on her phone. Did she have apps on her phone? Did she have social media accounts? Did she use any of those? Um, did she do, pictures, downloads, cropping, editing of any sort? Or did she just use the phone to answer and send texts, And a really big indicator for me that she's not a cell phone aficionado or like an extreme user is because what I read, because it wasn't brought in the trial, but what I read was that one of the things that became alarming for one of her friends was that her response to their question of how are you or how are things going was the letter K. And they felt that that was just way too simple for her, that she would be more communicative, use full words and sentences, and not just a letter. And I think that would be a great indicator for somebody who doesn't really use cell phones or technology, especially cell phones. Technology doesn't matter. I mean, that's computers in general, but cell phones very often outside of just communications direct, because one of the things is like you have all kinds of acronyms and shortcuts and everything for text messages because you just want to keep it short and simple and you just want to communicate it. But she would have full sentences and full words and be expressive and complete as if she was having an email conversation in a text message, which is usually supposed to be just a real quick thing. So that kind of indicates her usage of certain technology is a little narrower compared to someone else who is using technology in a more efficient way, if you
The thing
will.
I've been told about it is
In my opinion. Sorry, it's extra loud.
Definitely outside of anyone's regret or cross.
fair enough. Everything I've been told about it is very high.
Testifying that definitely outside of anyone's regret or cross.
Fair enough. In my investigation, I'm going to ask you a question, but in my investigation, from the very people you investigated, I was told she was of a high functioning nature.
Well,
You disagree with that?
yeah, now we're getting into something totally different. I don't know the people that he interviewed. I'd like to see
Same
that.
people you did.
And then
Mr. Floyd.
two, Judge, it's outside the scope of what we did over here on our cross or redirect.
You know,
Would you like to respond?
no. I'd rather just get this done and go to lunch. And if Mr. Flood would.
We would all love you to shut up, but I mean, you are there to work and get this on the record. This is funny. So they're arguing, basis, because obviously the scope of his questioning now is whatever was newly presented in the cross. So he's redirecting based upon information that was newly presented. So one of the part of the arguments is that you're going down a lane that's not even a part of the cross, which is her acumen relative to her educational background, which I take offense to that. I don't think you need a degree to operate a phone. It's just a matter of how you operate it and how savvy you feel about all of its capabilities. And you can have a degree. Highly educated people of certain ages don't use phones for all of that. And then there's like even people like me, I'm a millennial, but I'm not running up my phone like that, So it just depends on your comfort level with it. I don't think his answer was as disparaging as this particular attorney wants to argue. And he was walking around extras, respectfully. I just don't think that she was really savvy relative to technology, especially maybe just the phone in and of itself.
Just keep a seat. I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I would, Judge, if.
Did you, in your investigation, and I mean the collective investigation, interview any of Ms. Warner's doctors, physicians, mental health professionals?
I personally have not, no, sir.
Has anybody on your team interviewed any of her doctors, mental health professionals?
Some interviews were done by the sheriff's department.
Okay.
So it's kind of convoluted when you say the team. So there are some records of interviews being conducted, but I don't believe any of them were Michigan State Police.
Did you ever
personnel.
meet with Craig Miller?
I have not met with Craig Miller.
Has anybody at the sheriff's department met with Craig Miller to your knowledge?
Yes,
Has your partner met with Craig Miller?
not professionally at least.
Will you
What does that
provide
mean?
Craig Miller's records
Yes.
and the complete file of Dee Warner?
It's my understanding it's a complete file. Yes, sir.
And how was that obtained through search warrant?
I'm unclear. That was not obtained by us. It was our predecessor.
But you're in possession of it at this point,
Yes, sir.
and that's a part of your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
How many search warrants have you issued in this case? You said 100?
Over 100. I don't have an exact number, sir.
Have all of them been signed by a magistrate?
By a judge.
Do you know which judge?
Typically Judge Olsaber.
Any particular reason why he signed them all, or that he's just the one on call at the time?
He didn't
Not
say
to speak ill of
all.
other judges, but
He said typically, not all.
he's pretty savvy with email, so it's easy. I don't have to come in and see him.
Got it. So the search warrants have been prepared by you or your partner or your team?
I wish he'd do some, to be honest with you, sir, but I've been doing all of it myself.
So you prepared all the search warrants, and you then present them to Judge Olsaber, who
I'm
says,
just playing with my hair.
To the prosecutor and the judge, yes, sir.
and
Bored with this. I mean, not bored,
have
but
they yielded any
annoyed.
results that you know of?
Yes.
Any results that you're comfortable talking about here, or is that a part of your investigation?
The search warrants cover such a wide array of topics and records, sir. I don't know how to respond to your question.
Fair enough. So in the hundreds of search warrants, you have accumulated documents and other things, correct?
That's I like the part.
The search warrants have resulted in numerous things.
Okay. Fair enough. And that would include a search warrant that was executed on May 4th, that looked up or dug up.
Oh, I'm tangling up my
probably
hair.
Several thousand acres. of
Come
land.
on, people, get to it.
We excavated one site with machinery, but there was other manipulation of soil in other areas. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What are we talking about? He searched
And
sites. He didn't find a body.
I have requested some of the search warrants and the tabulation results.
Said this already.
I know I've provided you and or Mr. Warner the returning tab. I'm not sure if you, but you know what? I did speak to you. I did send you one, I think, personally, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Not the search warrant, but, no, I'm sorry, the search warrant and the tab, not the affidavit, yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. He did
Bill and
things.
Warner
Guess what? He investigated.
are married, right? There's been no separation that you know of other than her disappearance, right?
Oh, wow.
She's
wow.
missing, obviously, but under the guise of the law. they're still
Wow.
married,
Wow.
Correct.
Right? And so if
Wow.
at some point in time after Dee's disappearance, while Dale was operating the businesses and legal documents suggested he had a right.
I know you're not asking this detective to interpret the law. You can't be doing that. That's the judge's. That's the judge's job. Why are you asking this detective to interpret the law?
To use Dee's position as a part of the company. There's nothing illegal about that, right?
What?
Justice,
Talking
object to
about?
the form of the question.
Yeah, how does he have that knowledge?
Or a myriad of other objections to that question.
Okay, remember, this is a homicide detective. A homicide detective. He's not here to talk to you about business law and how what is and isn't legal in the business world
Outside the scope of everything we've done.
or family law.
The bank account you testified to earlier where Dale Warner tried to cash a check. Do you know whether or not his signature was on that account?
I'm not familiar with him trying to cash a check.
I thought I heard you testify that he attempted to cash a check at a bank that was,
Try to withdraw funds, my understanding, sir.
yeah. Right. Was he illegally allowed to do that, you know?
Well, apparently not. The bank said no.
Well, the bank may,
Exactly. Apparently not, because he came in with a power of attorney. So he's obviously not on the account. If you're on the account, you don't need a power of attorney. You need your ID.
not known what the status was, right? You don't know whether or not the bank had any documentation of that effect, do you?
I know that only her name is on the account, which would remove the ability of someone else to access it.
As it relates to Mr. Weisberg, and then I'll be done.
Oh, thank God.
You know when Mr. Weisberg came back to work for Dale Warner?
2
after
days
his
after she
disappearance?
left. Just kidding.
I don't have an exact date.
Okay. It was, do you know whether it was right after she disappeared, or, I know you don't have a date, but can you give me an approximate time? You must have talked to somebody that would have told you that, right?
I guess I can, without going into too great a detail, sir, I can say that there was not much contact between Dale Warner and Mark Weisberg for quite some time. And then 3 days after her disappearance, he starts contacting Mark Weisberg for some reason. He then shortly after becomes an employee of the company again. So,
Do you know that he's an employee?
I'm sorry?
Do you know that his status is as a?
He's acting as an agent for Dale Warner in some
Okay,
capacity.
you'll
so-
agree with me,
So
that
it
doesn't
doesn't
mean,
employing him in some way unless he's doing it for free, which I would find hard to believe.
but it could be a consultant, it could be something, it doesn't necessarily mean he works for the companies, right?
I would assume that
So he's arguing whether he's a W-2 employee versus a 1099 independent contractor. What does it matter? He is working for the business in some capacity for which he was fired from previously, and he sued. So however you characterize his relationship, his employment status, or his financial benefit, whether it's W-2, 1099, so darn what? So darn what? He was fired. And this attorney keeps putting his foot in his mouth, because now he's allowed this this witness to get out the fact that Dale Warner had no communication with Weissenberger, or whatever his name is, for some extended time while Dee was around. And the minute she's gone, days later, he's all of a sudden in full force communication with him. And even if you're saying, well, he was consulting him, you have a whole office full of people who have been running the business. And according to the testimony that you elicited earlier, Dee was, maybe an overseer, but everybody else was doing operations and making the business go on a day in and day out basis. And it sounds like she had so many different systems in place and operational contracts in place that she didn't necessarily need to give direction, that they had an automation to keeping things going. So what would you need to consult with someone who was fired from your business for? If they were fired from the business, they're automatically just gruntled. Automatically. So the information they give you shouldn't be trusted, because you would believe them to not wish your business well, right? So why do you have so much confidence in the information they're going to give you?
that based off of the actions that Mark Weisberg is.
Days after she's been, not like weeks later and you're in the trenches and you're trying to make the payments and you just don't know if you can make it because she's disappeared and you have no idea how to run this, and everything is due. It's all the bills are due now and the rent is due, and no. And oh, Weissenberg, please come help me. I know we had a hard footing, but she's gone. And I don't even know how to do what we're doing, because I was working in the farming field all the time. We had a whole staff of people that did that.
Conducting himself,
no.
and he's being paid by Dale Warner to do that, which is off of the actions that most of the companies, right? I would assume that based off of the actions that Mark Weisberg is conducting himself in, he's being paid by Dale Warner to do them, which by the basic definition would make him an employee of some kind.
I would beg to differ with you. I mean, you could be a consultant, you could be an agent, you could be lots of things. An employee under the law qualifies.
Okay, so Dale Warner is paying Mark Weisberg to do things.
That's fair enough. That's reasonable, and that's perfectly legal, isn't it?
I don't know.
I would assume so. I don't know.
Nothing further, Judge.
Right, last opportunity for request from our other attorneys.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank
I don't have
God.
4 questions. I just have one. When you said there's domestic violence between Dale Warner and Dee Ann Warner, is it your findings that Dee Ann Warner was the victim of domestic violence?
Absolutely.
Nothing further.
Ms. Wilhelm,
Who is Dee Ann Warner?
thank you for your testimony.
Is that Dee?
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, I have one question.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Bolderman?
How
Go
dare
on,
you?
question 2 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, one question regarding the SBA loan document. The electronic signatures on there, I believe there's one for Dale Warner and one for Dee Warner. Do you know who signed on behalf of Dee Warner?
I know that it's not Dee Warner. I do not know who signed on behalf of her.
How do you know it's not? Oh,
Nothing further.
how does he know that?
Okay, all right. Should we excuse the detective or do we need to reserve him?
Oh,
Counselor?
reserve him.
I'm good with the excusing it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ah,
No objection to the same?
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, thank you so much for your time and your testimony, detective.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome to be on your way.
Whew.
As for the rest of us, we will also be taking a lunch break. But before we do that, we're gonna go back on record in the conservatorship matter. So we'll be in recess. Let's give this until 2 o'clock.
Thank you,
Just
Your
gonna
Honor.
take a bit of extra time.
All right, so they like to cut their feed quick. I'm doing weird things with my hair. Sorry, I'm getting worn out. This, though I am getting worn out, was a very interesting find. There's a lot of salacious elements to it that we just fell into. Trust me, I was not looking for all of that. I did not know that this was all coming up. But just a reminder, we are actually in probate court. Can you believe it? We've had a lot of testimony that sounds more criminal aspects than it does stand out for probate court. But we are, in fact, in probate court in Michigan. And the reason why the detective was brought in was to speak to legally finding Madam Warner deceased. That was the purpose of his testimony. And so a lot of it was challenged in different ways relative to how would you know that, basing on what investigation, what part of your investigation gave you those findings. And then does that really mean that she's deceased versus voluntarily missing, you know? And of course, a notation of her being deceased is necessary for probate court. We've got to find that she's no longer living so that we can deal with her assets and get those to the right people. So that was the necessity of his testimony. It's a very sad set of alleged facts. I am, like I said, we fell into it so tough. I didn't want to stop it because we were in probate court. We're trying to go to probate court. We had a great hearing earlier relative to contempt and what, you know, non-production will do for you and how many days you get to spend in jail under contempt, to falling right into a trial for probate and determining that because I don't live in Michigan, right? So I'm not privy to this, or I was not privy and did not realize that this was a very sensitive topic. So I'm glad I gave the disclaimer. Hopefully you guys were able to stay on and not feel ostracized by the potential content. And even though they got into some DV elements, they didn't really dive into the details because there isn't an open investigation and the husband is no longer just a person of interest, he is actually a suspect in a murder of his wife, who is the subject of this probate matter. So the criminal murder trial has not gone forth. I don't know that they've even filed charges against him in that regard. So that, of course, will be handled by other outlets. I don't plan on covering that, okay? Because one, I've never operated in criminal law more than I've just seen it. Like that's it, watched it, but I've never done anything on the back end of it. I've stayed away from it. I've only done civil. And two, I kind of wanted to keep it with real estate. So kind of understanding where we are in this particular case. I do want to follow the probate case a little longer. I want to see how this unfolds because it's kind of interesting. The attorneys are a little spicy. The one attorney is asking crazy questions. I don't agree with the judge all the time, but she's my new bestie. I love her facial expressions. Right. So I'm really into that set of aspects of it. And what I think our takeaways are, of course, is this is a extreme highlight for why you need a trust, right? You need a wills and a trust in place, because if you mysteriously go missing and they have to account for your body, you want them to do so with what you want done. And it sounds like Dee was in this I don't know her, so let me say Mrs. Warner. It sounds like Mrs. Warner was in a place that she was planning on making changes inclusive of her marriage. She was looking to dissolve it, or at least to speak about separation or dissolution. And though it didn't come to pass because she just magically disappeared. Wow, it's so unfortunate that's what we know so far. But this is definitely reason why you have that trust and you keep these things updated, because they have a child in common, if no more than that, because there are 5 children of question for her. I don't necessarily know if all 5 children are really with her husband or their bonus children in the marriage. But the one child in common we know is a minor, and she loses the biggest, because presuming that the other children are adults and have had some milestones their mother have been able to participate in, she loses her mother prior to puberty or right around puberty's time. So all things that are changing in a young girl's life, aspects of emotions and understanding and relationships and friendships and schools. I mean, kids are back in school now. Just imagine all the conversations you're having with your children now, right? Like the 10s and 20s of different conversations the last 3 days. This young lady is not having that conversation with her mother for years now. For 2 years, she hasn't been able to come home and talk to her mom about school, about teachers, about friends, about uniforms, about homework and syllabi and all the different things that the kids are talking about. And the lunch, if it was good or not good. I mean, just all the topics. And she's coming into her womanhood and she's doing it without her mother. On top of that, there is the thought that her dad is involved in the disappearance or, the demise of her mom. She loses big time. And my heart goes out to them. And what we can do for ourselves, of course, we want to be booed up and hooked up and connected and married to, respectable, loving partners forever. But insurance and trust and all of that is for what may happen. Accidents happen, things happen. So when you're thinking about your trust, think about who you can put into place to protect your children as well. There, like I said, we had guardian items show up here. If you have certain complex trusts, you can even use an institution, whether a financial institution or otherwise, you can use an institution to financially basically have a financial power of attorney over your child, so that they're not just getting the money themselves, that obviously is going to the parent to operate and use for their upkeep, their upbringing, but it goes to a third party, like a bank or some type of financial advisor or institution that will take on your particular trust. And you have to have those communications with them in the upfront. You can't just put their name down. They have to, say, yes, I can take over your trust. Yes, your trust meets our criterion for oversight. And then after that factor, they can decide, okay, we're going to invest the money until this particular child is of age, and then they start getting payouts of a certain amount. And you can put all those things in your trust. So once again, have professionals do professional things. Sit down, speak with a trust estates planning attorney to determine particulars in scenarios that have such complexities. If you have a business, partners, in the event of your passing, where will things go? Are they going to go to your children in an equal share, or are they going to go into a trust and they get funded a certain amount of money every month or a quarter of the year, whatever you guys decide, and the other gets invested on their behalf? So lots of options there, and I think that well, they're in probate, so I'm not sure if they're just in probate because they need to determine her, maybe the order determining that she's no longer living, or if they're in probate because there's no will, or there's a will and there's no trust. I'm not sure what brings them to probate. So hopefully we'll be able to iron that out later. But at this time, I'm going to go wrap up my hair. My crazy pigtails. I'm going to go wrap up my hair and take a break. We'll come back at this later. I think we've got a lot of information to get caught up on before we move on to the next hearing anyway. So, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for, clicking on. And if you happen to be related to, or, know the family in question, the Warner family, please send them my love and best wishes. And I could not imagine that situation on a personal level, but I do have empathy for them and wish them all the best. Okay. So like, share, and subscribe. Lyric Armstrong, your real estate agent and advocate, and I'll see you on the other side.